When I was born, my eyes were sealed by 2 sword seals. For 20 years, the master used his life-bound sword intent to seal the 2 seals in my eyes tightly in the depths of darkness. But today, seal the trance burst. My heart meridians were torn apart inch by sword energy. Even breathing made me want to swallow the blade. The sect healer left only one sentence, without the supreme sword heart suppressing it. Lin Yuan probably wouldn't survive the night. So, Master Xiao Hani was silent for a long time. He dismissed the crowd. He personally cut open his chest. He took out his exquisite sword heart. Unexpectedly, the system notification was triggered directly. Option 1, accept the 4 immortal swords of the Linglong sword heart family. From then on, he embarked on an invincible path. Finally, at the moment of ascending the tomb sword god with 10,000 swords. Option 2, refuse the reward. Sword draw critical hit system. Complies with the bound objectives of this system. You can obtain all kinds of heaven-defying sword intent techniques. What a joke. Let me, a blind man who can't even touch the hilt, draw the sword. Are you blind or am I blind? First time drawing a sword. It guarantees a 10-fold critical hit. Sword clash. I was overjoyed. I didn't expect the first time to have such an incredible crit rate. I was just about to casually touch a branch and see if this system would be conservative. But my hand hadn't touched the hilt yet. A series of angry shouts suddenly rang out in my ears. Lin Yuan, do you know how pure this exquisite sword heart is? The cold-clothed sealed master will dig out your heart for you. You still hesitate? A blind man, and can obtain the exquisite sword heart. It's a blessing you've earned over 8 lifetimes. The newcomer was none other than senior brother Lu Jinhong, and several sect elders. They outwardly accused me of being ungrateful. In fact, the words were all hinted up. If I don't want to, he should hand over the exquisite sword heart to the sect. Lu Jinhong said coldly. Lin Yuan, the exquisite sword heart is not something a useless person like you can withstand, if you truly have self-awareness. So I made the right choice for Uncle Xiao. I heard Master's aura chaotic. He knew he was struggling to even stand steadily now. I didn't move right away. Instead, he reached out to touch the sword heart in his palm. Everyone thought I was going to accept it. But in the next moment, I pushed the Linglong sword heart back onto Master's chest. I spoke each word clearly. Master's sword heart. I don't want to. Lin Yuan, could be blind for life. You can go your whole life without touching the hilt. But my way of swordsmanship. You can't start by digging into his heart. A deadly plan for the whole venue. Lu Jinhong was momentarily stunned. He immediately sneered. No? That's perfect. Such sacred relics should belong to the sect. He finished speaking. He actually reached out directly to snatch the Linglong sword heart. I couldn't see his movements, but then he heard the sword energy in his sleeve break through the air. The system notification sounded immediately. Detected a bindable target. Lu Jinhong. The target is swordsmanship obsession. Seizing the exquisite sword heart. Cheng was the sword master of the sect. Whether to bind or not, I sneered inwardly. So that's how it is. He also harbored a sword in his heart. I decisively chose to bind it. Lu Jinhong acted extremely fast. The elders inside the hall did not stop him, because they also want to know. This blind man really doesn't want the Linglong sword heart. Still pretending to be aloof. Master insisted he wanted to protect me, but because he lost the Linglong sword heart, spiritual power rebelled and caused disorder. Fainted. Murderous intent surged in my heart. But you must stay calm. The system demanded a draw of the sword. But I don't have a sword. I don't even know where Lu Jinhong's sword is. Lu Jinhong saw through my embarrassment. He deliberately stabbed his golden red sword into the ground. The sword rings out crisply, only 3 steps away from me. He mocked. Lin Yuan. The sword is right here. If you truly have backbone, just pull it out and show me. The surrounding disciples burst into laughter. He couldn't even walk steadily. He then drew his sword. Xiao Feng was the one who gave the sword heart to this useless fool. How foolish. I didn't argue, because I really can't touch that sword. I reached out. His fingertips brushed the cold ground. He almost touched the hilt, but Lu Jinhong deliberately used his sword energy to shake the heavens. My palm was cut open. Blood dripped onto the ground. The sense of humiliation instantly surged. Yi Qingli stood at the back of the crowd. Seeing my hands covered in blood, his expression was complicated. He once sympathized with me, but at this moment, he couldn't help but close his eyes for a moment. It seemed unbearable to look any longer. Waste should act like waste. You are not worthy of being a disciple of the Book of Disappearing, and you're not worthy of him digging out your heart for you. That sentence completely struck a nerve with me. Suddenly, I realized. The system said to draw his sword. It may not necessarily be the sword in hand. Lu Jinhong was the sharpest at this moment. It wasn't the golden red sword stuck in the ground. It was the desire in her heart to seize the sword, crush my killing intent. So I stopped probing the sword's base. I avoid useless eyes. Following her voice, he suddenly reached out and grabbed her sleeve. Lu Jinhong was stunned. What do you do? I said to the system in my mind. I want to draw the sword from his heart. The system fell silent for a moment. Then a hint. Meet the conditions for the first draw of the sword. Draw sword target. Lu Jinhong Jian's decree. He began to draw his sword. In an instant, I heard a sword that only I could hear. That wasn't the sound of a physical sword being drawn. That was the voice of Lu Jinhong's obsession being forcibly pulled out. His face was wrinkled. It was as if a bone had been pulled from the depths of his soul. He suddenly stepped back half a step, and in the palm of my hand, an invisible sword light appeared. System notification. First successful sword draw. Obtained incomplete golden red sword intent. Triggers a tenfold critical rebound. Congratulations, host. You have obtained it. The intent of the Wuxiang sword. The moment the Wuxiang sword intent entered his body, my vision was still pitch black. But this is the first time I've heard of a sword. I heard the scabbard at Lu Jinhong's waist trembling. He heard the sword energy hidden at Cheng Mao's fingertips. He heard the exquisite sword heart on his master's chest, weakly but stubbornly beating. I slowly stood up. Lu Jinhong was furious. He forcibly suppressed his unstable mind. He drew his golden red sword and thrust it at me. He wanted to disable it before everyone could react. I didn't dodge. I just raised my hand. Using 2 fingers, she clamped the edge of his sword. The whole room erupted in an uproar. Everyone in the hall was stunned by the scene where I pinched the golden red sword between my 2 fingers, especially those disciples who just mocked me. At this moment, each of them felt as if their throats were being choked. They clearly watched me groping the ground with their own eyes. His palm bled, but now, Lu Jinhong's sword, however, was firmly held between my fingertips. Lu Jinhong was skeptical. He frantically pushed his spiritual power. The golden red sword erupted with a dazzling sword light. Sword energy surged throughout the hall, forcing many disciples to retreat. And what I hear is the breath of the sword. Lu Jinhong's sword looked fierce. Actually, it's chaotic, because the trace of golden red sword intent in his heart had already been stripped away by me. His sword was no longer complete. I said softly, Lu Jinhong, your sword is trembling. As soon as these words were spoken, Lu Jinhong's face grew even darker, because only he himself knows. Jinhong Jian was really shaking. He was furious and humiliated. He actually used the killer move, golden red line. It pierced straight into my throat. Master forced himself to call my name. Yi Qingli couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, but I only leaned half an inch to the side. The sword's edge pressed against my throat. Scratch. The entire hall fell silent like death. A blind man, a sect universally recognized as useless. He actually repelled the chief disciple of the Qingxian sword sect head-on. Lu Jinhong wanted to fight again, but he was stopped by a law enforcement elder. The elder outwardly scolded Lu Jinhong for her actions. In fact, he looked at me coldly. The exquisite sword heart is a treasured treasure of the sect. Xiaohan gave a heartfelt message to his disciple, thus undermining the rules and regulations of the sect. And since you refused to fuse with the sword heart, he had to hand over the sword heart to the sect for protection. I understood. They can't win it. He started following the rules. Master said weakly, the exquisite sword heart is mine. Not from a sect. Minor cold lingers. As the master of the Qingyuan sword sect, a single cultivation of oneself, all receiving support from the sect. Your sword heart. Naturally, it was also important to consider the overall situation of the sect. This statement is utterly shameless. I was about to speak. Suddenly, the system in his mind detected that the Linglong sword heart was decaying out of the body. If within 3 days one cannot return to his position, the heart-giving sword vein was shattered and destroyed. My heart tightened. So even if I refuse to fuse, the sword heart dug out by Master also cannot be separated from the body for long. I must quickly bring Jianxin back to Master's body. But right now, everyone was watching. As long as I perform too strongly, the sect leadership will definitely be even more vigilant. I will definitely be more vigilant with the senior law enforcement officials. I said this to the law enforcement elder, since the elder spoke of rules. Then let's follow the rules. Qingxian Sword Sect has an old rule. If a disciple disagrees with the elder's decision, one may ascend to the sword platform to inquire with the sword. 3 days after I faced my injustice, I ascended the sword inquiry platform. If I lose, the Linglong sword heart was handed over to the sect. If I win, the sect must not touch my master's sword heart again. Besides that, sword holders must follow the path of the heavenly sword. You still dare to make demands. The exquisite sword heart is separated from the body within 3 days. If one does not use the path of the mending heaven sword to continue the sword vein, master's swordsmanship foundation will surely be destroyed. Since you keep saying to follow the rules, then let's explain the rules in full. I bow to the sword and return to the sect. I surpass the path of the heavenly sword, returning to Hanifeng. If anyone dares to touch my master after I come to greet you, I will draw someone's sword. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire hall erupted in uproar. Lu Jinhong sneered. He thought I could block his sword. It was nothing but luck. 3 days later, he asked at the sword terrace. He will definitely cripple me in public. All right, since you, Lin Yuan, insist on doing this. 3 days from now, the sword inquiry platform. 3 days from now, the inquiry sword platform. This elder approves. The law enforcement elder agreed, as they happened to be able to receive the inquiry sword platform. He pinned me down with Xiao Hani, leaving only master holding my hand and speaking in a low voice. Lin Yuan, you shouldn't have done this for me. I held his cold hand in return. Master, this time it's my turn to protect you. After returning to Hani Peak, the master completely fell into a coma. I put the Linglong sword heart back on his chest, only to find it couldn't be put back in place. Because it's easy to dig out the heart but hard to mend it, they needed a spiritual item called the Patching Heaven Sword Path. Only then could the Linglong sword heart reconnect with the sword vein and mend the heavenly sword road. Only the sword pool of the Qingxian sword sect has it. The sword pool is controlled by the sect leader's lineage. Lu Jinhong was the first disciple of the sword pool. That is to say, 3 days later, at the sword inquiry platform, I don't just want to win. I still want to win until they have to patch up the heavenly sword path for me. Yi Qingli quietly approached Hanifeng. Lu Jinhong had already released flowers. In 3 days, not only will I beat you, and you have to prove that you were involved in the sword heart cheating thanks to Uncle Xiao. The law enforcement hall also planned to thoroughly investigate Hanifeng behind the sword inquiry platform. I'm not surprised. Senior Brother Lin. Senior Brother Li, do you really have a sword? I was silent for a moment, then answered honestly. No. Yi Qingli was speechless. I really don't have a sword. Before, I couldn't see it. Master was afraid I would hurt myself. Never let me carry a sword, including a seal of both upper and lower volumes. I can't even find a disciple sword suitable for me. Yi Qingli grew anxious. Senior Brother Li, lend me my sword. But I refused because the system required me to draw my sword. It doesn't necessarily require the Ming sword. I want to verify something. The Wuxiang suggestion can make all things a sword. I groped my way into the courtyard and broke off a dry branch. Yi Qingli hesitated, probably thinking I was crazy. I hold onto a withered branch. He silently recited to draw his sword. Common dead branches were detected. Whether to perform the formless sword draw. Reminder. Ordinary items have very weak sword intent capacity. Forcing the sword to pull out could cause it to collapse. I didn't hesitate. Pulled out. In the next instant, the withered branch trembled slightly in my palm. It did not become a divine weapon, nor did it cause any earth-shattering incidents. But I heard a faint sword cry. He drew his sword and succeeded. Obtain a wisp of grass and wood sword energy. Tenfold critical strike. Obtain Qingmu Sheng's sword intent. After Qingmu Shu entered his body, I immediately sensed the damaged sword veins within my master's body. This sword intent cannot directly repair the Linglong sword heart, yet it could temporarily protect his heart meridian. Let the cracks not widen. I gently tapped the withered branch on my master's brow. A strand of blue sword energy flowed into his body. The master's tightly furrowed brows finally relaxed. His breathing also became steadier. Yi Qingli witnessed this scene with her own eyes. He was so shocked he couldn't speak. A withered branch. I actually unleashed sword intent. And not a killing sword. It is the sword of saving lives. Just then, a commotion came from outside Hanifeng. The law enforcement disciples sent by Lu Jinhong arrived. They said they were acting on orders from the law enforcement hall. All of Hanifeng's swords, elixirs, spirit stones must be temporarily sealed, so that I don't cheat, borrowing foreign items in 3 days. Yi Qing's face turned pale with disgrace. This is clearly meant to cut off my path. But I just laughed. They seal swords and weapons, seal the elixir, seal the spirit stone, but could they seal off the mountain full of vegetation? I leaned on that dry branch and walked out of the house. The law enforcement disciples saw me holding a dry branch, and mocked him in confusion. Lin Yuan, you wouldn't intend to take this thing. Go up to the sword inquiry platform. I didn't explain. I just lift a withered branch. A gentle stroke. The next moment, Hanifeng slapped the dead grass on both sides and bent his waist for 77 days, playing with swords with countless thousand people, reaching out to my armrest. All the law enforcement disciples' laughter abruptly stopped. I calmly went back to tell Lu Jinhong. 3 days later, I don't need Master's sword heart, nor does it require the sect's sword energy, a withered branch, enough to draw his sword. After the law enforcement disciple left, Hanifeng started over. After the law enforcement disciple left, Hanifeng quieted down again, but I couldn't calm down at all. The system's prompt, it still echoes in my mind, detected the presence of sleeping sword bones underground in Honey Wind. The sword bone aura is connected to the host's bloodline. I hold that dead branch. He stood in the courtyard for a long time. The mountain breeze blew past my ears. The grass and trees resound with a clear sound. If it were as before, I just find these sounds chaotic. But ever since the Wuxiang sword entered my body, I can actually distinguish many subtle differences from the sound of the wind. There was the sound of grass leaves bending at the waist. There was the sound of cold air flowing through the cracks in the rocks. There are also extremely deep underground areas. A deep sword cry rang out. The sword cry was very soft, yet it feels like being separated by long years. Calling my name, Senior Brother Lin. Yi Qingli stood behind me. The voice sounded a bit worried. I snapped back to reality. Did you hear anything? He was stunned for a moment. The sound of wind, and the sound of pine waves behind Hanifeng. I shook my head, and there are others. I raised my hand. Crying, he pointed toward the back mountain. The younger brother has insight. Yi Qingli was silent for a moment. No doubt. He didn't press further. I'll go with you. I didn't refuse. Master was still unconscious in the room. The Five Heaven Sword path had not yet been reached. The Linglong Sword Heart can only rely on Aoki Xingjian to temporarily protect its master. The Sword Terrace will be asked 3 days later. It explains Hanifeng's younger brother's belongings. It relates to my future path. Yi Qingli and I walked down the stone steps behind the mountain. The night was deep. I can't see the moonlight, yet you can hear the wind under the moon passing through the treetops. I hear distant mountain springs falling on rocks. He also heard Hanifeng's younger brother's increasingly clearer sword ring. Right here. This is Hanifeng's old sword platform. It has been abandoned for many years. I heard that when Lord Xiaofeng first joined the sect, he once practiced swordsmanship here. I crouched down. He reached out and touched the ground. I silently recited in my heart, "Can the system be unplugged?" The system notification quickly sounded. Bloodline linked targets detected. The Lin family's sword bones remain. Current sealed status. Deep asleep. You can draw your sword. Reminder, this target involves the host's own karma. The extraction process may trigger memory shock. Memory shock. I only saw a micro shield. Yi Qingli noticed my hesitation. He asked softly, "Senior Brother Lin, isn't it dangerous?" I smiled. Not necessarily dangerous. It might just hurt. He still wanted to persuade him. I have already placed the withered branches between the cracks in the rocks. The Wuxiang sword descended along the withered branch. Next, go straight. The entire old sword platform trembled slightly. The stone slab was not cracked, nor was there any earth-shattering phenomenon. But the world around my ears suddenly faded away. All the rumors of the wind, the sound of the grass wind, the sound of grass, the sound of water, all become extremely faint. Instead, a blurry image appears. No, not a picture. I can't see it. It was more like a memory hidden within the sound of swords. I heard someone running urgently. The clash of sword energies was heard. I heard a gentle yet determined voice say, "Take the child with you." Another woman's voice was very soft, but with an unwavering resolve. She couldn't fall into those people's hands. My heart suddenly understood. The voice was unfamiliar, but it made me instinctively sad. Immediately after, I heard a voice lofty above. There was no light in this child's eyes, but it was like biting the sword of formlessness. Suddenly, my eyes throbbed sharply. That was not ordinary pain. It was more like some old seal had been revealed by Jian Ming. I let out a muffled groan, half kneeling on the ground. "Senior Brother Lin, Yi Qingli supported me. I gritted my teeth. He didn't let go, and could not retreat. I don't know who these voices belong to. He didn't even know what that phrase, the sword of no form, meant. But I am clear. This underground sword, related to my past. I have to pull it out. And drew his sword. I whispered in my heart, a trembling cry. Beneath the old sword terrors, the sword cry that had slept for years suddenly rang out. A wisp of warm sword intent rose from the crack in the rock. It fell into my palm. It was not as rich and lustrous as Lu Jinhong's sword intent, nor was it as gentle as Aoki Shen's sword intent. It carries a profound sense of protection, like a pair of hands that once stood in front of me. The system notification sounded immediately. Ding. He drew his sword and succeeded. Obtained the spirit form remnant sword intent. Triggers 100x critical hit rebate. Congratulations, host. Obtained the bloodline sword seeking technique. The moment the bloodline sword-seeking technique entered his body, I heard a new layer of sound in the world. That is not the sound of a sword. It is the echo of cause and effect. I can sense an aura very similar to the spirit stone broken sword. It's faint, but it truly exists. I looked up, facing the direction of Qingxian Main Peak. Senior Brother Lin, what did you discover? On Lu Jinhong's body, there was a sword aura similar to this place. She is connected to your background. Not necessarily. But at least, she had come into contact with things she shouldn't have. In the distance, the main peak is heading toward it. A flash of sword light briefly flashed, then quickly disappeared. I heard Lu Jinhong's sword humming softly. In that voice, there was a trace of coldness that did not belong to the Qingxian sword sect. Suddenly, I understood. 3 days later, at the Sword Inquiry platform, it's not just my duel with Lu Jinhong. That will be the first door I use to trace the past. And Lu Jinhong was the lock on the door. Early the next morning, containing a letter from an outsider. Early the next morning, containing a letter from an outsider. Many people came, leading the way. It was Lu Jinhong. Her steps were steady. Yet all is clear and detailed. The golden red sword at his waist was no longer as light as before. Ever since I drew a wisp of golden red sword from her heart, her sword's cry took on a hint of heaviness. This kind of stagnation, others couldn't tell, but I heard it clearly. He hadn't come close yet. Yi Qingli blocked the courtyard gate. Senior Brother Lu Xiaofeng was recuperating from his injuries. Hanifeng was not comfortable receiving guests. Junior Sister Yi misunderstood. I'm not here to disturb Uncle Xiao. But it was under the orders of Elder Sword Pool, and sent a healing pill. He spoke politely, but from the sound of his sleeve fluttering, he could hear a hint of uncontrollable pride. I pushed the door open and left, and sent Dan, Lin Yuan. Yesterday, the meeting at the Sword Terrace was settled. The sect was unwilling to spread rumors, so he specially ordered me to deliver a bottle of fame-protecting pills. Xiao Shishu is willing to take it. At least they could safely hold out these 3 days. How? Hanifeng even refused the sect's kindness. Or is it true? You're afraid I'll tamper with the pills. I understood what he meant. If I do not accept it, he could say I don't appreciate the sect's favor. If I accept it, if there's something wrong with the pill, Master is in danger. If I were to question it in public, but they couldn't produce any evidence. Instead, he could turn the tables and blame others, accusing me of slandering fellow disciples. Lu Jinhong wasn't mindlessly provoking her. He was here to set a trap. I reached out. Give it to me, Yi Qingli said softly. Senior Brother Lin. I shook my head, and his intentions were unguarded. The jade bottle fell into his palm. The touch felt slightly cool. I can't see the elixir in the bottle, but he could use the bloodline sword-seeking technique to sense the aura within. At first, inside it was only ordinary medicinal power, but when I listened with the formless sword in a single breath, then I heard deep within the elixir, a faint sword sound was hidden within. That is not the sword of intelligence. Instead, it was a cold-natured sword energy that invaded the sword veins. It doesn't hurt anyone immediately. It would only slightly disturb the master's just stabilized Linglong sword heart. 3 days later, the Sword Inquiry platform began. Master's condition would inevitably deteriorate rapidly. Lu Jinghong wanted me to distract her. He even wanted to make me lose my last support before the Sword Inquiry platform. What are you laughing at? I just didn't expect it. Senior Brother Lu cares so much about my master. After speaking, my finger loosened. The jade bottle fell to the ground. With a loud smack, the bottle shattered open. The pill rolled out, A faint chill seeped out from the pill, falling into overflow, fell onto the blue stone slab. The stone tablet showed no shocking changes, but a thin layer of frost quickly formed on the surface. The courtyard instantly fell silent. Yi Qingli's expression changed. The law enforcement disciple was also stunned. I bent down. He picked up a pill. This was the Meridian Protection pill bestowed by Elder Jiankai. Lin Yuan. You deliberately smashed the pill bottle. Now you still want to slander me. Slander. I raised my hand. He tossed the pill onto a withered grass nearby. The elixir landed. Fine frost marks immediately appeared on the dry grass. The grass leaves did not wither, but it quickly stiffened. It was as if some kind of cold sword energy had sealed his vitality. This pill might protect ordinary meridians, but for those who had just left the body and were unstable in their positions, speaking with the exquisite sword heart, but it can cause interference. Senior Brother Lu, you are a disciple of the Saber-Toothed Guardian. You surely don't understand this basic knowledge. Lu Jinhong's expression darkened slightly. Of course she understood, but she hadn't expected it. I, a blind man, would notice that the law enforcement disciple behind her was starting to feel uneasy. One of them said softly, Senior Brother Lu, this pill really was given by Elder Jiankai. Lu Jinhong shot him a cold glance. I didn't give her a chance to change the subject. Senior Brother Lu, you just said this was sent by order of Elder Sabertooth. In other words, this pill was not chosen by your own hands. Lu Jinhong's anger flashed. Naturally, it was a gift from Elder Sabertooth. All right. Then I will be on the sword inquiry platform. He asked Elder Sabertooth to explain in public. Lu Jinhong finally couldn't suppress the coldness in her eyes. She took a step forward, lowered his voice. Lin Yuan. Do you really think you can block my sword? He has the right to fight me. I hold a dry branch, not a fight. You're the ones trying to use the rules to pressure me. I will return it with proper rules. Lu Jinhong was silent for a moment. Suddenly, he laughed. All right. She turned and left. As she passed by me, she spoke in a voice only I could hear. On the sword inquiry platform, I'll let you know. A sword intent he had gained by chance. In the end, it doesn't belong to you. I didn't respond, because at the very moment he approached, the bloodline sword-seeking technique sent waves again. The unfamiliar wisp of sword energy within Lu Jinhong's body. It was clearer than yesterday. It does not belong to Qingxian, nor are they saber teeth. That is a higher level, and became more martial. It was more like the sword intent of fate. A system notification sounded, detected inside the target's body, waiting for an external sword species. Source unknown. Relying on the legacy of the Qingxian sect, the sword intent focused on carefully grasping it. I faced the direction Lu Jinhong had left. Qingqing's mom cried and sobbed. 3 days later, she wanted to guess that I was asserting authority, but she didn't know. The arrow she brought is the arrow that truly reaches my hand. I inquired about the night before the arrow platform. Hanifeng was sealed even tighter. The law enforcement hall sent people to guard the mountain path. No disciples were allowed to enter or leave. The reason is grandiose. They said it was to ensure Wen Jian's public health, to prevent anyone from secretly sending arrows, elixirs, external items like talismans. Sounds like a rule. In fact, it's a broken road. Yi Qingli was held back by the wind. It wasn't until dark that we bypassed the small back mountain path. This formation is not about eyesight. Instead, it disrupted the perception of the divine sense. Lu Jinhong was sure you could block his arrows. It was because he had obtained his arrow. It's because they received some kind of perceptual advice. So he specifically asked Tang Zhentang to set up this formation. Tomorrow when you take the stage, all 5 senses are disrupted. After hearing this, I couldn't help but chuckle. Yi Qingli grew anxious. Senior Brother Lin, you're still laughing. I just think he's really thoughtful. How thoughtful? Targeting you. Targeting me means he's scared. Yi Qingli said solemnly. A person who truly believes they are bound to win. He wouldn't have used so many methods in advance, the more he walked. But it shows he was uncertain. That said, I did not underestimate the enemy. Lu Jinhong is no fool. Duanmu Sorzhen Ruo only disrupting his vision. It means nothing to me. But if he could disturb the 5 senses, even interfering with what I heard, that would be very troublesome. I must be before dawn. Find another path. Yi Qingli waited outside the master's house. I went alone to the back hill. The night breeze was chilly. I have pan cool. I sat cross-legged beside the old sword platform. The river's withered branches stretch across the west. Let me hear the formless sword intent. The sword intent of the greenwood gives rise to the vitality of plants and trees. The temporary broken sword told me to touch my bloodline and seek medical treatment. But each sword stands on its own. It hasn't truly become my sword yet. Tomorrow, I will ask you about the sword platform. Lu Qinghong won't give me any more chance to slowly adjust. I have to do something. His own sword moves. I slowly lifted the withered branch, plants and trees, and can be made into a sword. No one answered. Only the wind blows through the grass leaves, rustling. I take the Wuxiang sword and go to listen to the grass and trees. He used the Qingmu sound sword to lure them away. At first, the plants and trees only swayed gently, completely without any established rules. My sword is strong. They simply couldn't bear it, broken off in profusion. The first failure. The second time. The withered branch could not withstand the sword intent. It splits open directly from the middle. I switched to a different one. The third time, I tried to activate both Wuxiang and Qingyu at the same time. The two sword intents are mutually repelled. The shock made my palm tingle. The fourth time, fifth time, 10th time, the night grew darker and deeper. My fingers ached from repeatedly gripping the sword. The old wound in his palm had also cracked slightly again. No exaggerated pain. Only a sharp pain reminded me, I'm still far from strong enough. Suddenly, I remembered what my master once said. A sword is not something the eyes can see. Then what do you rely on? Depends on you knowing why you hold the sword. Why hold a sword? Once upon a time, I held a sword. He wanted to prove that even a blind person could become a sword cultivator. Later, I took up the sword. He wanted to stop burdening his master. And now, I leaned in to listen to Hanifeng. The master inside the room breathed steadily. Outside the mountain path, the law enforcement disciple walked heavily. Farther away, the lights on Qingxian main peak never went off. Many people are waiting to see me fail tomorrow. Suddenly, I understood. I hold the sword, not to make them shut up, but for those who want to take away others' choices. Step back. My sword. No need to be overly aggressive. As long as he could protect the person behind him, that is enough. The moment the thought fell, Qingmu's sword intent no longer rejected the formless sword intent. The two are like wind and grass. Finally, they found the same rhythm. I lift the dry branch, gently move forward a little. He saw the grass and leaves around the platform all bowing low, ignoring being overwhelmed. Yet the statue was awaiting orders. I waved again. Countless blades of grass rose with the wind. Though it lacks the sharpness of an iron sword, yet in midair, it formed a flexible sword stone. They do not harm the rocks, and do not destroy the grass and trees. He only protected me tightly around me, making it impossible to get through. A system notification sounded, protected tightly to the point of airtightness. I let out a long breath, and the sky began to brighten. Yi Qingli ran down the mountain path and saw that the grass around the old arrow platform was all slanting toward me. Shocked and speechless, I stood up, the dry branch still in my hand. Let's go, he asked instinctively. Where to go? And asked about the arrow platform, detected the presence of a formation targeting the host's perception at the arrow inquiry platform. There are 7 formation cores. It is recommended to use all the grass and trees to probe and break the formation. I smiled gently, and Lu Jinhong prepared a formation for me. Perfectly. I also want to see the grass and trees on the mountain, borrowing my advice. Could you ask about Qingxuan's rules? The sword inquiry platform is set halfway up the main peak of Qingxian. When I arrived, the audience was already packed with people. Disciple of Qingxian, elder enforcing the law, the elder with the sword. Many rare wind masters had also arrived. Everyone's eyes were on me. I can't see it, yet I could hear it. Some breathe with anticipation. Someone's whisper hides mockery. Others remain silent. It seems she just wants to take a look. How far could this blind disciple Hanifeng go? Yi Qingli supported his master as they stood at a distance. The master was still very weak, but he insisted on coming. Lin Yuan. If you can't hold on, ask to admit defeat. Master. Nowadays, I wouldn't say it. He was silent for a moment. He chuckled softly. All right, I hold a dry branch. Step by step, he ascended the sword inquiry platform. On stage, Lu Jinhong was already waiting for me. His golden red sword had left his body half an inch. The sword clang was sharper than a few days ago, and even more unfamiliar. Obviously, the foreign sword seed inside him, it has been further stimulated. As he spoke, the voice was not loud, but it was enough for the audience to hear. Lin Yuan. You really want to use this dry branch? And asked me about the sword. I raised a dry branch in my hand. What could be impossible? Lowered laughter came from the audience. Really using dry branches? Still trying to get a branch? Isn't that a bit too childish? Senior brother Lu, one sword strike could cut it off. I ignored it. Lu Jinhong, however, really enjoyed this kind of sound. This was exactly the situation she wanted. She wants me to look ridiculous in front of everyone, and then personally defeat me. Only then could the embarrassment of the past few days be washed away. Today, I am testing the sword banquet, and proceeded according to the ancient rules of Qingxian. Standing at the abyss as if defeated, the exquisite sword heart was handed over to the sect for safekeeping. Standing by the abyss as if victorious, the sect granted him the patch heavenly sword path. Zhu Xiaohani repaired his sword heart. The disciple understood. Since you understand, let's get started. In an instant, the voices around me became chaotic. The wind grew farther and closer, and the voices below seemed to be crushed. Lin Yuan, can you still hear my energy? Duanmu Jianchen, senior brother Lu even prepared this. Now Lin Yuan was finished. Lu Jinhong thought I was trapped, so she slowly drew her sword. The golden red sword was drawn, its sword energy aimed straight at my brow. But just as she took the first step, the withered branches in my hands are lush and green. Every plant and tree is like a soldier. The sword inquiry platform is not wasteland. There were still tiny blades of grass in the crevices of the rocks. By the terrace, green vines also encircled the orchids. No one usually pays attention to these faint signs of life. But under the guidance of Qingmusheng Jianyi, they all became my ears and eyes. The broken wood sword is just disturbing my senses, yet it cannot disturb the natural tendencies of the plants and trees. Where does the wind come from? The grass then brushes toward that direction. Where would the sword energy be flicked from? The horizontal leaves wrap around there. Where is the formation core? The vitality of plants and trees is suppressed there. I couldn't hear Lu Jinhong's footsteps, but I hear a blade of grass, the sound of bending under the pressure of sword energy. I leaned half an inch to the side. Lu Jinhong's sword pressed against my shoulder, stepping lightly. The laughter from the audience abruptly stopped. Lu Jinhong's strike missed. It was clearly more accurate. I didn't fight back. Only the withered branches are lifted. Looking toward the left side of the sword inquiry platform, there is 10 points. Smack. The first formation core shattered. The chaotic momentum of the broken wood sword formation immediately weakened a bit. How could you possibly find the array core? Because of your formation. Uglier than your sword. A commotion erupted from the audience. Lu Jinhong gritted her teeth. He drew his sword again. This time, his sword strike was even wider. 3 consecutive sword lights approached from different directions. Meanwhile, the remaining 6 formation cores simultaneously intensified the interference. The world in my ears twisted again, but the grass and trees were already on edge. I took a step forward, crying twice. The second formation eye was broken. The third formation core was broken, and at every broken spot, the audience quieted down for a moment. Those waiting to see me embarrassed finally realized something. I'm not taking chances. I really am in the broken path pool. I'm not taking chances. I really am breaking through the golden red trap. Lin Yuan. You think you've broken the formation, and you can beat me. Formation is your courage. Sword, that's your true skill. Now, let me see what you're capable of. Ability. Lu Jinhong finally drew the Jinhong sword completely. The sword's sharp rang out, carrying a chill that didn't belong to him. The system notification sounded simultaneously. Detected active target foreign sword type. Can be bound, and can be seized. Moderate risk. I gripped the dry branch tightly. The true showdown at the sword inquiry platform. Only now is it beginning. After Lu Jinhong truly drew her sword, the aura on the sword inquiry platform immediately changed. Those previous formations, speech, testing, it was like mist spread over the surface. Until this moment, the golden red sword in his hand was completely skillful. Only then did I hear the long-suppressed sharpness within that sword. afraid of being so quick. It was also very cold. But what scared me even more, it was the unfamiliar voice deep within the sword ring. That sound didn't sound like the sword intent of the Qingxian sword sect. The Qingxian sword is straightforward and upright, broad and open. Even if someone misses the mark, there is still a clear foundation. But the foreign sword pillar inside Lu Jinhong's sword. But it was like a stroke of fate. He forcibly pressed down on his sword, driving it toward an even more extreme direction. Lu Jinhong thrust his sword forward. He then struck down with Xu Hong's sword. Many people hadn't even reacted yet. The sword's edge was already in front of me. All the grass and trees were struck by soldiers. The green vine at the edge of the sword inquiry platform trembled slightly. Capture the sound of sword energy for me. The grass leaves in the cracks of the rocks were bent by the blade of the sword. Then it bounced back in the next instant. I moved along with these faint sounds. Lu Jinhong's sword brushed against my sleeve, bringing a cold wind. Someone below the stage exclaimed in surprise. Dodged away. He clearly couldn't see it. How could he dodge so accurately? Lu Jinhong clearly heard those voices as well. His breath deepened. The sword's momentum suddenly intensified. Lin Yuan. Do you only know how to hide? If your sword can only pierce empty-handed, then why should I take it? But after all, Lu Jinhong was the chief of Qingxian. It won't easily lose control. He quickly steadied himself. The golden red sword in his hand trembled. The sword light suddenly split apart. 7 sword shadows struck simultaneously. I heard 7 sword blades. Among them, 6 are very light. Only 1 is the heaviest. The needle and sword are 3 kun to the left, front of the sword. I lift the dry branch. He went up to meet them. Withered branches coexist with golden red swords. It emitted a clear sound. Logically, a piece of ordinary dry branch. No matter what, it couldn't stop the magic sword. But it was wrapped around the withered branches. The formless sword intent and the greenwood life sword intent. He did not intend to compete in sword intent with the golden red sword. Instead, he gently followed the sword's edge, one by one. He deflected Lu Jinhong's sword stance by half an inch. Half an inch. That's enough. Lu Jinhong's sword missed once again. I took the opportunity to step forward. The tears were pointed at his wrist. He reacted extremely quickly, immediately sheathing her sword and returning to defend. But at that very moment, I heard the foreign sword seed inside his sword suddenly twitch. It was as if my sword intent had awakened him. The target foreign sword type is active, capable of deep sword drawing. Reminder, this sword type is bound to the target sword heart. Forcing it out will cause backlash. Without a sword seed, push it to the limit. Let him take the initiative to surface. So I kept defending. From the perspective of bystanders, I was forced to retreat repeatedly by Lu Jinhong's pressure. Sword light crisscrossed the sword inquiry platform. Suddenly, he realized he had nearly been cut off several times. The audience below the audience again voiced their voices. I couldn't hold on any longer, just as expected. Just now, he was just trying to break the formation and take shortcuts. After senior brother Lu took it seriously, he was still far from it. Yi Qingli's breathing grew tense, but master remained silent. I know he can tell. I'm still waiting. Lu Jinhong also thought I had reached my limit. His sword momentum grew thinner and thinner. The aura of the foreign sword species was finally fully revealed. The golden red sword, originally bright and clear, it was covered by a colder layer of sword sound. Lu Jinhong said softly, "It's over." He slashed out with his sword. This time, the sword light did not differentiate. There was no change either, only speed. So fast that on the sword inquiry platform, it seemed only this one sword king remained. But the more pure the sword strike, the more likely the core is to be exposed. I didn't retreat, crying as she let go. Let him fall. The whole room erupted in an uproar. Lu Jinhong was also shaken for a moment. He probably thought I had given up, but in the next moment, I raised my hand. He grabbed his sword edge directly. Of course, I didn't use my hand to block the corpse sword. I grabbed the sword blade after that. Those sword types that hadn't been pushed to the limit by external forces. The Wuxiang sword intent followed the golden red sword upward, like an invisible hand, probing into the depths of Lu Jinhong's sword intent. Lu Jinhong's expression changed dramatically. "Don't you dare," I answered the system in my mind, drawing the sword. In an instant, all the sword names on the sword inquiry platform seemed to be stretched out. I heard Lu Jinhong's shock and anger, hearing the astonishment of the crowd below. I also heard that there were no foreign sword seeds. The sharp tremor when it was forcibly pulled away. He was unwilling. Separation. I will use this place, grab this place, and directly pull it out. A wisp of icy sword light gathers in my palm. Deep uproot. Obtained the Holy Land Remnant Sword Seed. Triggers 300x critical hit rebate. Congratulations to Lord Su for obtaining the embroidered form of the Heaven-Slaying Sword Intent. The moment the Heaven-Slaying Sword Intent entered my body, the withered branch in my hand sprang up again and fell back into my palm. Lu Jinhong's sword momentum suddenly vanished. He appeared and retreated, and the Jinhong sword emitted an unstable trembling sound. I didn't give him a chance to continue using the dead branch sweep. This sword didn't hurt anyone. It was only displayed at the weakest point of sword intent of the golden red sword. Ding! The golden red sword flew out from his hand. Inserted at the edge of the sword inquiry platform, the blade trembled uncontrollably. Lu Jinhong stood where she was. His face was pale blue. His eyes were full of disbelief. Your sword? I don't recognize you anymore. Senior brother Lu was defeated. Sect leader. As agreed. Mending the heavenly sword path. It's time to give it to me. On the high platform, Shen Daoxian didn't answer immediately. I heard the sound of his fingertips tapping his bowed head. Stop. At that moment, I know, the way he looked at me, it was no longer just about looking at a troublesome disciple. Instead, he saw that a single sword was worth fighting against a disciple. It's about the strength worth possessing with a single sword. After the battle at the sword inquiry platform, the entire Qingxian main wind was a quiet event. When Lu Jinhong was helped off the stage, no more words were spoken. The golden red sword was retrieved by the law enforcement disciples. Yet he never unleashed the same light sword power as before. I didn't catch up. Nor did she continue to humiliate him. A win is a win. What I really want, it was never about embarrassing Lu Jinhong. It was the patching heaven sword path. On the high platform, sect leader Shen Daoxian was silent for a moment. Finally, he spoke. Since Lin Yuan had won, the sect naturally gathers to keep the agreement. But I could feel it. He was scrutinizing me. That look didn't look like an elder looking at a disciple. Nor is it like a sect leader caring for the younger members of the sect. It was more like measuring a sharp sword that had not yet been fully mastered. Elder Jiankai was clearly unwilling. He said in a low voice, Sect leader, the patching heaven sword path is a treasured collection of the sword pool. Xiao Hani secretly dug out the exquisite sword heart. It exists to begin with. Sect leader. The patching heaven sword path is a treasured collection of the sword pool. Xiao Hani secretly dug out the exquisite sword heart. There was a mistake from the start. Now, once again, on the path of swordsmanship, is it? After a long time of returning, things were settled, and must not fly lightly. A jade bottle was handed to me. The bottle isn't big, feels warm and smooth to the touch. There were only a few drops of liquid inside, but it radiates. Yet it exudes an extremely pure sword tin. Detected a repair-type sword Dao spiritual item. The patching heaven sword path can be used to stabilize the spirit dragon sword heart. Thank you, Master, for keeping your promise. Ling Yuan, come to Shufeng later to see me. I will first return to Hanyi Peak. To stabilize his master's sword heart, Shen Daoxian did not stop him. Yi Qingli supported master and left with me. All along the way, countless Qingxian disciples cast their gazes upon me. It was different from when I arrived. This time, they are no longer mocking. There was shock, confusion, and unease. I know that after this battle at Wenjian platform, Hanifeng is called a blind man and a waste. He could no longer stand firm. Back to Hanifeng, I immediately took out the heaven repairing sword. Lin Yuan, you shouldn't have risked blocking that sword. I'll teach you how to grow up. Your sword intent changes. How could I not see it? I was furious, when everyone was just curious about what opportunity one had received. Only Master first asked if I was taking any risks. I guided the heaven repairing sword record around the exquisite sword heart. Aoki Sheng's sword intent gently supported the sword pulse. The tightly furrowed marks between Master's brows finally relaxed. A long time passed. He exhaled softly. The crack in the exquisite sword heart was temporarily suppressed. Only then did I feel at ease. But the system notification sounded as well. Detected Ling Long sword heart's foundation is stable. Insufficient conditions for complete restoration. Needs to be added to the unclaimed sword soul. Only then can one regain their foundation in swordsmanship. The sword soul has no master. Among the ancient sword species of Qingxian, there are many lingering doubts about broken swords left by predecessors. A very small number of them will give birth to unclaimed sword souls. If only a single thread could be found, the exquisite sword heart can truly return to its place in the ancient sword. Will it get trapped? In ancient swords, human feelings are not recognized. Only recognize the sword's heart. If you force your way in, it might be rejected by 10,000 swords. That's perfect. I never really liked sword recruitment. After settling him in, I went to the main peak. Shen Daoxian waited alone in the grand hall. The main hall was utterly empty. Every footstep echoed with each footstep. I had just stepped in. He heard several hidden sword formations inside the hall trembling softly. He saw several hidden sword formations inside the hall trembling gently. He was guarding against me, testing me too. Today, on the sword inquiry platform, the sword intent you use is not transmitted by Xiao Hani. The disciple occasionally had an insight. Occasionally, I have an insight. And could break the wooden sword formation. Revealed and Dew startled the swan. If the sect leader does not believe it, I don't know how to explain it either. You don't need to be nervous. The sect welcomes disciples to succeed. It's just that your foundation is special now. Without guidance, it's easy to go astray. The ancient sword species will open in 3 days. I can let you in. What about the conditions? If you gain something from the ancient sword. The dashed line was handed over to the sect for identification. Qingxiong sect has trained you for many years. You should give back to the sect. I didn't argue on the spot. I only ask if I find the little witch lord's sword soul. Can it be used to repair the master's sword heart? If it is in accordance with the rules, of course you can. Leaving the main peak, the system suddenly notified, detected an abnormal sword imprint inside Sect Master Shen Daoxian. This sword imprint had a similar origin and lineage to the sword seeds inside Lu Jinhong's body. High danger level. I didn't stop walking. Just as expected, Lu Jinhong was just someone on stage. The one who truly reached out to Hanifeng. This is the higher level of Emperor Xuanzong of the Qing dynasty, and the ancient sword breed. This is the next test they have prepared for me. 3 days later. Ancient sword seeding activated. The Qingxian ancient sword species is located behind the main peak. The entrance was a heavy stone door. Before the stone gate opened, the surroundings were already filled with spiritual sword systems. Ordinary disciples fight in perilous realms. Breathing becomes difficult. I'll arrive then. Many disciples were already waiting. Most of them are like wind spirit eagles, ordered to enter the ancient sword sect. Find a suitable captain for the broken sword. Lu Jinhong did not show up. I heard she was still in seclusion to recuperate. In the ancient sword world, only the true sword cultivator Lin Yuan is mentioned. If you are inside, you can't move an inch. It's best to exit promptly, so as not to lose one's life. Yi Qingli was also in the group. She originally did not have the qualifications to enter the ancient sword chamber. This is another warning from Master. He also secured a spot for her with a warning saint. She stood beside me. He said softly, "Senior brother Lin, be careful of Elder Ju. She belonged to the Shan sect lineage." I nodded gently. When the stone gate opened, the sword cry from the city gate came from deep within. That was not the sound of a sword. Instead, thousands upon thousands of broken swords awakened together. The disciples entered one after another. Someone had just taken a few steps. It was instantly recognized by a broken sword strike, a surprising reflection on sitting cross-legged. Some were also pushed back by the sword energy. He could only regretfully withdraw. When it was my turn, the atmosphere became subtle. Many people want to know. On the sword inquiry platform, Daifang stepped on me. Can it gain recognition from the ancient sword species? I stepped over the stone gate. The gap between the inner chambers. The entire ancient sword species fell silent. It wasn't the sound of the sword to greet him, nor was it a sword intent probing, but all broken swords. Silence fell in the same instant. That feeling was very strange. He walked into a grand hall that had once been noisy. Everyone suddenly stopped talking. He turned to look at me. Elder Ju's cold laugh came from behind. It seems the ancient sword species doesn't recognize you. How could this be? Could it be that when Jian really saw something outside, Jiu Jianchao was unwilling to respond to him? Impossible. These broken swords are not rejecting me. Afraid that the spirit inside me is a broken sword. He was also afraid of the aura in the embryo of the formless sword fetus, which could draw a sword. For the sword, I'm not like an ordinary disciple. I'm more like someone who can hear their secrets. I continued deeper inside. Lin Yuan, there are no swords left on the periphery to recognize you. The further you go, the more dangerous it gets. Are you sure you still want to leave? Confirm. If something goes wrong, my door may not be able to save you in time. The disciple bears the consequences himself. The deeper you go, the deeper you go. The sword's breath grew heavier. Yi Qingli followed behind me. At first, it can still hold up. Later, the pace clearly slowed down. You stay here. No, it is not allowed. I promised Xiaofeng that I'd mainly watch you. You keep following. He would only be injured by the sword energy. He still wanted to hold on. I turn a strand of green wood into a sword. One stayed in his palm. If danger arises, crush it. I will hear it. Yi Qingli was silent for a moment. Finally, he nodded. I walk deeper alone. The deeper the ancient sword is planted. Broken swords are increasingly few, but every sword's aura is stronger than the drum tower. Most of them remain silent. Occasionally, the sound of sword chirps rang out. It was like warning me not to come close. Suddenly, the ground beneath my feet trembled lightly. All around, sword wings flowed toward the edge. Someone moved the formation. It wasn't the formation of the ancient sword species itself. The formation was activated. It wasn't the formation of the ancient sword species itself. It was the hidden soul formation from outside. It is like an invisible hand, leading me in a certain direction. I didn't resist, because the system notification had already sounded. High-level sword drawing target detected. Direction. Deep within the ancient sword species lies the sword pit. The risk is relatively high. I followed the hidden soul formation. A moment later, the road beneath his feet was empty. I arrived at the edge of a huge sword pit. Many beautiful stones and broken swords were embedded in the pit. Sword breaths mingled together. If an ordinary disciple fell into it, it will inevitably be hard to bear. Elder Ju's aura stopped far behind. He probably thought I was lured here by the formation. What followed was inevitable. They even had to call for help. But I stood at the edge of the pit. A faint laugh was heard from the bottom of the pit. Lin family bloodline. Finally, it came. I gripped the dry branch tightly. Who? An inconspicuous embroidered sword in the pit trembled gently. The voice was hoarse, but with a hint of cynicism. Don't be nervous, kid. If I want to harm you. You collapsed as soon as you entered the ancient sword. You recognize the Lin family, more than just recognizing them. Right. Last year, my master owed the Lin family a great favor. I didn't act immediately, because of the next sentence from Xiujian. Let me stop completely. The two sealing swords in your eyes. Does it still hurt? Xiujian's words. It made my sword tense in an instant. The sealing sword in the eyes. This secret, aside from the system prompt and the vague memory of Hanifeng's younger brother, almost no one knows about it. Even Master only knew that my eyes were healed. But the root cause cannot be clearly explained. But this embroidered sword, he immediately pointed it out right away. I hold a dry branch. His voice grew deeper. Who exactly are you? My name is Achi. He used to follow a very powerful sword cultivator, carrying and sharpening the sword for him, guarding the sword. Later, the owner passed away. I only have this one regret left, trapped inside this ancient sword species. Why do you recognize the Lin family? Because the Lin family once protected the Wuxiang sword embryo. That is not an ordinary talent, but a kind that can hold 10,000 swords. Yet the sword Dao root system is not bound by 10,000 swords. Many people want to get it, but they don't understand its true meaning. What is the true meaning? Freedom. None. The physiognomist is not constrained by appearance. A sword can be iron, it can be grass or trees, it can be the wind. Or it can be a thought in someone's heart that refuses to bow their head. The Lin family guards not strength. It is about preventing kendo from becoming a tool to enslave others. I remembered when Master dug out the exquisite sword heart, the first choice given by the system. That path is strong enough, but it was to pay with the Master's life. I refused. Perhaps from that moment on, I have already embarked on the path of formlessness. 20 years ago, someone is targeting the Lin family to cultivate the myriad world sword embryo. They seized the Lin family's sword bone, sealing a baby's eyes. He wanted him to be in the long years of invisibility, develop a vessel best suited to hold 10,000 swords. My breathing was slightly synchronized, although there had long been suspicions. But when he actually heard those words, it still felt as if a huge stone had been pressed down on his heart. I asked. Who was that person? Xiujian was silent for a moment. 10,000 Sword Saint Emperor. Ji Wuya. As soon as this name was mentioned, the broken swords around him began to tremble lightly, like fear, or like unwillingness. I didn't lie right away. 10,000 Sword Saint Emperor. He is the leader of the Eastern Wilderness Sword Dao. Qing Xuanzong stood before him. It is just one of many affiliated sects. If Ji Wuya truly was the mastermind behind the scenes back then my past, master's endurance, the sect leader's unusual behavior, they can all be strung together. The foreign building inside Liu Jinhong's body, Shen Daoxuan's abnormal suggestion, Hanifeng's younger brother's temporary remnants, everything points in the same direction. Why did Xiao Hani save me back then? I don't know the whole story, but I knew. Emperor Xuanzong of the Qing dynasty once received favors from the Lin family. The ancient architecture originally had an Old Testament to protect the descendants of the Lin family, but over time, and people's hearts will change, old covenants will be intentionally forgotten. The current leader of Qingxian, he bore the sword furnace seal of the 10,000 Sword Saint Emperor. What is the sword furnace seal? Not a ghost. What is the sword furnace seal? It's not a curse from ghosts or gods, nor is it anything mystical either. It is a kendo control imprint. After planting, the seal holder can receive part of the Saint Emperor's advice. They will also unknowingly assume the position of the Holy Emperor's orders. Some are forced to accept. Some people even took the initiative to trade. I understood. Shen Daoxian is very likely the latter. He wanted to use the power of the Holy Emperor to strengthen the Qingxian. He also wants to use my special constitution to gain more benefits. For him, Hanifeng, Master, are just pieces that can be placed on the chessboard. I gripped the dry branch tightly. Don't rush to hate. Hatred is also the sword most easily exploited by others. If Ji Wuya really stared at you, the more you hate him, the happier you are. I am straightforward. That was like a bucket of cold water. It snapped me out of my turbulent emotions. Yes, I cannot be led by hatred. I come to drum the sword master. This is to search for the masterless sword soul for his master, not just to sink into here. You just said. You are trapped inside this embroidered sword. Not bad. If I draw my sword, what would you do? You've finally gotten to the point. This lingering regret won't last long. Rather than slowly fading away within the embroidered sword, how about I help you out? You need the ownerless sword soul to repair the Linglong sword heart of seeking cold, and I happen to have a wisp of the guardian sword soul left. What about you? I will exist in a different way. If you pull steadily, maybe I can awaken with your sword intent for a while. If the pull is unstable, then consider this old bone of mine helping the Lin family one last time. I didn't agree right away. This wasn't Liu Jinhong's sword, nor is it a sword that draws out formations. Qi was actively entrusting the matter. I don't want to treat this as a system game. Kid, no need to be burdened. If the sword is sharp only for oneself, sooner or later, the matter will be resolved. Able to protect those who wish to be protected. Only then can it be considered that there was no white flame. I was silent for a long time. Finally, the withered branches are lifted. Senior Qi. If there is any offense, please forgive me. Cut the way. Go ahead and pull it out. I closed my useless eyes. The formless sword intent slowly descended into the sleeve sword. This time, I didn't forcibly take it. Instead, it was as if he had received a sword handed to him. His sleeve sword trembled slightly. A gentle yet resilient sword soul, slowly rising from deep within the sleeve, fell into my palm. A system notification sounded. He drew his sword and succeeded. Gained. Protecting the master's sword soul. Triggers a 500x critical reversal. Congratulations, host. You have obtained it. 10,000 swords obey the orders of the broken heavens. In the next instant, the silent broken sword within the ancient sword seed emitted a low hum at the same time. They no longer fear me. It was as if he was reaffirming. Where exactly will I use this power? Qi's voice echoed in my mind, much clearer than before. It worked. Let's go, kid. Save your master first. I grasped that strand of the guardian sword soul. He turned and walked outside the ancient sword sect. In the distance, Elder Ju's footsteps sounded somewhat flustered. He probably hadn't expected it. Not only did I not die in the sword pit, instead, it really took something from inside. I smiled gently. Qing Xuanzong wants to test me with the ancient sword seed, but they didn't know. This time, What I brought back wasn't a sword, but someone who has seen the truth. When the sword soul of the Guardian brings back the cold clothes and wind, Master is still recuperating. His breath was much calmer than in the past few days, but the exquisite sword heart ultimately remains the last thread of connection, if not made up for it. From now on, every time he wields his sword, whenever it gets triggered, it hurts. I dare not delay. Yi Qingli stood guard outside the door. Block all the disciples who come to inquire for me. I sat on the side of Tata. He used the sword intent of the Lightwood voice to protect his master's meridian, then slowly guided the guardian sword soul into the exquisite sword heart. The moment the sword soul entered his body, Master's brow furrowed slightly. I stopped immediately. Keep going. He suddenly spoke. The voice was very soft, but it was very steady. My heart skipped a beat. Master, you're awake. Finger whispered. Lin Yuan, don't be afraid. That sentence made my chest tighten. He was clearly the one who got hurt. But the first thing he did upon waking up, still comforting me, I steadied myself. He gradually merged the guardian sword soul into the exquisite sword heart. After 2 drinks, a clear sword cry rang out from inside the house. Not the sharp sound of the sofa, but it was like falling in love after snow. The exquisite sword heart had returned to its place. Master slowly opened his eyes. His face remained pale, but his gaze had returned to its former cold and clear demeanor. The soul sword was raised. Are you hurt? I shook my head. No, but he raised his hand, gently pressing my shoulder. That was where Lu Jinhong's sword had brushed past. Although the injury was not serious, but it couldn't be hidden from him. Don't act tough anymore, but if I'm not a bit stronger. He couldn't protect his master. Lin Yuan. Some things, I originally wanted to wait until you were stronger before talking. 20 years ago, I am going out under the sect's orders. On the way, they encounter a chase. Back then, you were still just a baby. His eyes were sealed by the sword seal. His breath was faint. I don't know where you're from. I only know that if I keep you here, you are doomed to die. Later, I found out, you are connected to the Lin family. Later, I noticed someone in the sect is also investigating you. I sealed Hanifeng off. Outsiders, just say you're a sickly disciple I picked up. Master, you already knew about the 10,000 Swords Sanctuary, only knowing one point, but the full form is unknown. The 10,000 Swords Holy Land is too high. No one in Qing Xuanzong dared to mention it lightly. What I can do, however, keep you alive. The room was quiet. Suddenly, I understood. Why hasn't he let me come down the mountain all these years? Why do people always say swords can be learned slowly? Life must be preserved first. That's not restraint. It was all he could do, shielding me from the unknown storms. The minor wind governs. The sect leader delivers orders. The Eastern Wilderness Sword Assembly is about to arrive. He ordered his senior brother to represent Qingxian in battle. The master's gaze turned slightly cold, but I calmed down. He wanted to push me to the ground of the 10,000 Sword Saint. Master looked at me. You don't have to go, no? Does the Sword Society leader have a pioneering sword fist team? I want to know, what exactly is sealed in my eyes? I'll go with you, I smiled. This time, I am no longer the child hidden behind the cold clothes by him. I want to stand shoulder to shoulder with him, facing the truth. Meanwhile, deep within the sword-sealing pool of the Qingxian Lord, Lu Jinhong knelt before a black sword tablet. His face was pale. Shen Daoxian stood behind him. Are you willing to accept that? Ling Yuan takes away more than just your life. It takes away your sword heart. If you want to stand up again, you need a sword of higher ground. Inside the black sword cup, a grayish-white sword light slowly appeared. Ji Yu Chenzhou's voice came from behind the sword cup. Don't take the advice of the Holy Land. You can rebuild your foundation. What is the cost? And obey orders. The moment the grey-white sword imprint pierced his brow, the golden-red sword suddenly let out a very faint cry. But Lu Jinhong could no longer hear. The day before departure, Lu Jinhong had returned. He stood on the main wind square, dressed in white as before, At his waist was still the Jinghong sword. If only the exclamations of the surrounding disciples were heard, others might think, he has recovered to his original state. But I could tell, his Jianming had changed. Though the Jinghong sword of the past was proud, yet still has its own clarity. Now, that voice, but it felt as if it was bound by a layer of icy iron. Every vibration, all of it feels unnatural. Kid. He was struck by the sword slave seal. Just kidding. The origins and origins are the same. But it is shallower. And more urgent. Most of the time, it was for beast arts and foundations, the brief combat power he gained. I frowned. Lu Jinhong walked up to me. The voice was much deeper and more elegant than before. Lin Yuan. The battle at the sword inquiry platform was not over yet. You have already lost. That was your use of a method that would not reveal the light of a sword. The surrounding disciples looked complicated. Some still revere his former position as chief. Some even witnessed him defeat at the sword inquiry platform, and dared not easily agree with him again. Lu Jinhong raised her hand and pressed down on the sword hilt. Today? I'll ask you for my sword again. People who have lost once. I don't deserve to see my dad a second time. The royal field instantly flashed like a mirror. Lu Jinhong's face darkened, seeing the servant secretly stirred by anger. The golden red sword emitted a sharp, trembling bell. He took a step forward. He actually wanted to make a move. It was clear he had not yet drawn his sheath. A cold, clear sword intent had already descended before him. Master has arrived. He didn't feel the weakness of being released from prison with serious injuries. Lu Jinhong. Sect Plaza. This is not a place for your private fights. Uncle Xiao also had to protect him. The master said calmly, I protect the rules. This statement made many disciples lower their heads, because everyone knows, the most unruly person in Qingxuanzong lately. It was precisely those who claimed to represent the sect. Lu Jinhong forcibly pressed down the swordsman. He turned to look at the high platform. The sect leader Shen Daoxian had appeared there at some unknown time, cold and restless. You recovered faster than I thought. He disappointed the leader. It's good that recovery is possible. The Eastern Emperor sword assembly was imminent. Qingxian needs you to accompany him in battle. I heard the sword imprint in his sleeve tremble slightly. That voice echoed the sword slave seal within Lu Jinhong's body. I finally made up my mind. The connection between the sect leader and the saintly brother runs deeper than I imagined. Lu Jinhong stepped aside. He said coldly before leaving, Lin Yuan. At the sword meeting, you will understand. Beyond the pure and mysterious realm is the true world. I didn't respond, because the system notification had already sounded. Testing the body of Lu Jinghong, the sword slave was in an unstable state. The sword slave was in an unstable state. There is a long-range sword intent pull with the 10,000 sword sanctuary. I faced the direction of the Eastern Wilderness Sword Society. There might be someone like Ji Yu Wuya there. There is a deeper trap. There is also the Po Wang sword fist that I want. This journey will not be easy. But I no longer just hide in the cracks of my winter clothes. The Eastern Wilderness Sword Association is set up in Heavenly Sword City. When we arrived, sword cultivators from various sects had already gathered in the city. Sword riders lined both sides of the street. Young disciples came and went like clouds. Everyone carries a sharp edge. When Emperor Xuanzong's team entered the venue, it did not attract much attention, until someone saw the dry branch in my hand. That was the disciple sent by Qingxian's sect. I heard his blind. Is Qingxian out of people? I didn't pay much attention. I've heard too many similar things along the way. If every word is kept in mind, my sword has long been in chaos. What really caught my attention? It was a young man on the high stage of the venue. He sat at the seat of the 10,000 sword sanctuary. His breath was steady. The sword's intent is extremely pure. Unlike the borrowed cold coat Lu Jinhong was wearing, her sword was like a clear yet unfathomable river. That was the sword child of the 10,000 swords holy land. Ji Yu Ling Xiao. You are Xiao Hani, who has been hiding for 20 years. The surroundings instantly fell silent. The master's gaze turned slightly cold. The elders of Qingchuan showed varied expressions. Some were shocked. Some people avoided it. Clearly, they were not completely unaware of the situation. I looked up at Ji Yu Ling Xiao. Looks like you don't know much yet. Then you know a lot. If you want to know, live until the finals. Detected the high-level sword Dao target. Ji Yu Ling Xiao can be bound. The current risk is high. The first round of matches began quickly. My opponent came from an affiliated middle gate, skilled in the swift sword. After he got on stage, He walked half a lap around me. He said with a smile, "Brother Lin," as if unable to see it. "Better to surrender early, to avoid accidental injury. Thanks for the reminder." He thought I was scared. The sword rises suddenly. His steps were light and light, attempting to attack from the flank and rear. But he was too eager to prove himself. A fast sword should avoid a restless aura. I heard his breath briefly before drawing his sword. He also heard the tip of the sword slip half an inch as it cut through the wind, crying as she lifts up. A gentle tap. The first strike marked the neck of his sword. The second strike, pressing it where his wrist was working. The third strike, he placed it where his footsteps had landed, but hadn't yet landed. He lost his balance, staggering a few steps. He actually retreated to the edge of the arena himself. I didn't pursue. After he steadied himself, his face flushed red, charging in again. This time, I only sidestepped to let his sword go. A withered branch pressed against his shoulder. Half an inch further forward, he would crash into it himself. He froze. This battle. The Qing fierce clan Lin Yuan prevailed. I retract the withered branches. He walked down from the ring. In the distance, Yu Lingxiao clapped lightly. Not just seeing it, it is hearing. No? Perhaps it was more like hearing. Are you willing to take that path? I stopped in my tracks. This Yu Lingxiao, much more troublesome than Lu Jinhong. Before the second round began, an elder accompanying me from the Qingxian sect came to find me. He didn't exchange pleasantries. He spoke up immediately. Lin Yuan. The next battle doesn't have to be too obvious. Why? Your opponent comes from a sect affiliated with the 10,000 Swords Holy Land. If the other party looks too bad, this can easily affect the relationship between the two parties. I understood. Emperor Xuanzong of Qing asked me to compete. He wants to use me to fight for his life. But once my sharpness strikes, it might offend the sacred land. They want me to restrain myself. What if the other side wants me to lose? The overall situation is paramount. The disciple understood. Winning is not acceptable, losing is also acceptable. You have to carry everything. What do you plan to do? I heard you were the orphan Xiao Hani rescued. Emperor Xuanzong of Qing raised you for 20 years, yet you constantly contradict the sect. He really is well-mannered. Are you done talking? Xiao Hani disobeyed the sect's orders back then. Now he even lets you show off in the establishment association. A place like Hanifeng, he is also worthy to represent Qingxian. I heard my master's breathing pause slightly. My heart actually calmed down. Some people don't speak for rewards, just to provoke the opponent, throwing the opponent off guard. I won't let him get his way. I lifted my tear strap. I'll give you a chance to finish what you want. He wanted everyone in the audience to hear clearly. You're not asking for a sword. They are using rumors to suppress others. If the 10,000 Sword Saint Emperor is affiliated with a sect, they only win by humiliating others' teachers. Then this sword will disappoint me. The audience instantly fell silent. Xu Zhao, embarrassed and enraged, drew his sword and attacked. His sword could not penetrate. The sword is a backward collision. They were taking a frontal suppression approach. If he had seized the initiative for ordinary disciples, it was indeed easy to be forced to retreat repeatedly. But his mind was in turmoil. The sword fell into chaos. It is no longer complete. I didn't use the heaven-slaying sword intent, nor did he draw his sword. Only the subtle wind at the edge of the arena was stirred by the grass and trees to engage the troops. He was half a row slow with every step. 3 moves later, his sword had a gap. I stepped closer. A withered branch touched the tip of his sword. The Wuxiang sword intent trembled gently along the blade. His sword flew out of his hand, landing on the edge of the ring. I sheathed my sword. No further steps were made. Emperor Xuanzong of Qing ascended the abyss, enjoying a splendid. You're just a disciple of the Qingxian rear division. What are you proud of? I faced the audience. It also faced the location where Qing Xuanzong stood. Today, I do not represent Qingxian Zhufeng, nor does it mean those who deliberately let me win or lose. The so-called adults who read people's moods. I spoke each word clearly. I represent Hanifeng. In the distance, Master quietly watched me. I couldn't see his expression. Suddenly, he heard a chirping of green in his palm. That is recognition. At the seat of the 10,000 views sacred land, an elder snorted coldly. But Yu Lingxiao just smiled. Then I heard someone whisper during the holy banquet. Next round. Let Yu Lingxiao try him. System notification. A system notification sounded. The high-level target, Ji Lingxiao, is about to enter the fray. I grip the dry branch tightly. The true sword returns, from the next battle. When the third round of rosters was announced, the whole room fell silent for a moment, purifying the sacred abyss of Emperor Xuanzong. Facing the 10,000 sword sent Emperor Ji Lingxiao. This is not the final, yet it attracted even more attention than the final. Ji Lingxiao is the Holy Emperor sword disciple. From childhood, I have been in the dark cave of the eastern wilderness. Legend has it that he mastered swordsmanship at the age of 13. At 16, he entered the sword and wielded it without defeat. Now, he is only a little over 20 years old. He was already able to discuss precepts with many sect elders, and in most people's eyes, he was just a blind disciple who suddenly appeared from the Qingchuan sect. Before going on stage, the elder accompanying Qingchuan stopped me. Lin Yuan, Ji Jianzi held a noble status. This battle is limited to a point. They said he didn't just touch it up. I ignored him again. The master stood not far away. He said softly, "Be careful." I nodded. On the arena, Ji Lingxiao didn't immediately draw his sword. His sword was very quiet. Unlike Lu Jinhong, who was so outspoken, nor was he as eager to pressure others as Xu Zhao. Ji Lingxiao stood there. It was like a deep stretch of water. The surface is calm, but beneath the surface, there are hidden currents. He asked me, "Lin Yuan, what do you think a sword is?" I held the crying stick. Dao, you want to hear the answer? Or maybe he wanted to use this question to test me. Ji Lingxiao smiled. All of them. I thought about it. Speaking, the sword is a choice. Why not power? Power is just one result of the sword, not the sword itself. So what do you choose? Protect the people I want to protect. It also protects my reason for refusing to back down. Ji Lingxiao was silent for a moment. Then, he drew his sword. In that instant, the wind on the arena suddenly became extremely light. It's not that there is no wind. Instead, all the wind seemed to be drawn by his sword. Flow in the same direction. Be careful. His sword was steady. It was truly a mistake on his own. When the first sword fell, I didn't hear the sound of the wind breaking, because his sword was too smooth. It seemed he was supposed to be in that position anyway. I will use grass and trees to guide the way. But he found the plants and trees at the edge of the arena full of vitality. He was crushed to the limit by his sword, never oppressing at any moment. It is persuasion. His sword made everything around him believe for a moment. His tricks were the real deal. I took half a step back, crying so hard it blocked the way. The sword meets the weeping one. No loud noise, only a sharp, clear cry remained. My arm went numb. You are very good at borrowing everything. You are very good at making all things obey. Isn't it good to be obedient? Say they are willing. Say they are willing. Naturally, that's good. If you are only forced to take risks, that would be bad. Ji Lingxiao's eyes finally showed a hint of seriousness. The second strike was faster than the first. I no longer fully defend. The Wuxiang sword was unfurled. I won't go for his sword stone. Only a gentle touch at the moment his sword and stone were about to form. He called out and descended. Ji Lingxiao's sword was half an inch off. Someone below the stage exclaimed in surprise. But Ji Lingxiao just smiled. So that's how it is. You're not the broken sword. It is about making the sword choose again. I didn't answer, because the system notification had already sounded. Detected target. Ji Lingxiao saw a clear mind. Can be bound. It is not recommended to forcibly draw the sword. My heart stirred slightly. Even the system warned against forcibly drawing the sword. Lin Yuan. I can admit defeat. I frowned. Why? Ji Lingxiao didn't answer right away. He looked toward the depths of the high platform in the Chaos Sword Sanctuary, the auras of several elders there. After he spoke, he was clearly confused for a moment, because from the moment you appeared, some people in the Holy Land reacted too hastily. They fear you'll see the broken king and the fists, afraid you will make it to the finals. He even feared you might leave Tianjian City alive. Leaving Tianjian City. I wonder what they are really afraid of. So I want to see you make it to the end. I don't need you to give up. Then take my final strike. The sword light suddenly burst forth. I lift the dry branch, unfolding the heavenly sword, a prototype. For the first time, it truly emerged. The two swords clashed. The wind on the arena suddenly stopped. A moment later, Ji Lingxiao took a step back. I also took a step back. He sheathed his sword. Dao, stop. The referee hesitated for a long time. Finally announced. Lin Yuan prevailed. Yu Ling Xiao stepped down from the front of the platform. He said softly, "The gentleman steps forward. Watch out for your Qingxian people." I gripped the dry branch tightly. Looks like they really want to stop me. Not limited to the Sage Emperor. I entered the temple wall. The attitude toward me completely changed at the venue. The previous mockery was gone. Shu'er looked over instead. Speculation. There was also a vague sense of apprehension. Someone who could make the Holy Emperor regress at the sight of his son, no matter one's background, can no longer be treated as a joke. It is permissible to clear the inner court of Emperor Xuanzong, but he showed little joy. That night, Shen Daoxian arrived. He didn't bring any entourage. Standing alone outside the guest courtyard, Master blocked the way at the door. His tone was cold. The sect leader came to visit late at night. "There is a matter to attend to," Shen Daoxian said. "I want to talk to Lin Yuan." "He needs to rest." I walked out of the house. "Master, no harm." Shen Daoxian looked at me. After a moment of silence, he said, "The finals will be held tomorrow. You abstain." Yi Qingli's expression changed. "Why? Lin Yuan, you have proven yourself. Keep going." "Yes, for you, for Hanifeng." Facing Emperor Xuanzong of Qing. None of these are necessarily good things. This is not good for Emperor Xuanzong of the Qing dynasty. Still bad for the sect leader. You're still young. He didn't understand what the 10,000 sword sanctuary meant. All I know is, sword wisdom is the foremost among them. One may enter the broken net and see all intact. Breaking the net reveals that it's not something you should touch. Because it can see the seal in my eyes. Sect leader, you already knew who I am. So what if I know? If it hadn't been for Qing Xuanzong taking you in back then, you won't live to see today. It was Master who took me in. He was also a member of the Qingxian sect. It's different. Lin Yuan, do not place personal favor above the overall interests of the sect. If you insist on winning first place, this will attract the intent of the sacred land to punish you. But Hanifeng can't protect you. Even Qin Gongzong couldn't protect him. Then I'll protect myself. This is Tianjian City. All the sects in the eastern wilderness were present. He couldn't lay a hand on a competing disciple in public. He turned to leave before leaving behind one last sentence. "If you go on stage tomorrow." He was no longer a disciple of Qingxiong sect. I smiled. From what I said, Hanifeng was being polite. Didn't the sect leader already think so? Shen Daoxian paused in his tracks. In the end, there was no turning back. The night fell quiet again. Yi Qingli's eyes turned red with anger, but he struggled to hold back. Master looked at me. He asked softly. "Then tomorrow I'll watch you from the audience." That night, I didn't practice swordsmanship. I just sat by the window, listening to the wind formed by the heavenly sword, listening to the breathing of countless sword cultivators in the distance. He also listened as the sword in his heart gradually settled. "Tomorrow I will not fight for Qingxian. I fight for the truth." Hold the finals. My opponent is named Song Mingchuan. He came from the Tianhe sword sect. It has an excellent reputation. After going on stage, he first bowed to me. "Brother Lin, I've seen your previous battles," I said. People return to their hearts. Thank you. Please send a letter. Let's get started. Song Mingchuan was the first to draw his sword. His sword momentum was like a long river rushing on, progressing step by step, neither rushed nor impatient, yet it gave no chance to catch one's breath. I use all the grasses and trees as soldiers to respond to the surroundings, but he discovered a glimmer of life at the edge of the arena. His sword force washed him away, making him waver. This is not suppression. It was a straightforward offensive. I stepped back 7 steps, every step back. He then used the formless sword intent to split open another layer of sword aura. But Song Mingchuan's sword was very steady. After being disassembled, it was immediately reconnected. The river water was cut off but then permitted again. The audience was quiet. No mockery, nor did they try to cheer him on. Everyone knows. This is the true questioning and answering. I know. This is the true questioning and answering. Step 8. I stopped, then withdraw again. We'll get into their rhythm. I lift the dry branch. For the first time, she actively faced his sword. Withered branches dotted the very front of the swordsman. The river-like sword intent paused slightly. A light appeared in Song Mingchuan's eyes. All right. Not only did he not retreat, instead, The swordsman rose even higher. I laughed too. Such an opponent. It's worth taking seriously. The prototype of the Shantian sword appeared on a withered branch, but he didn't show any dominance. I pressed him down very thinly, only used to cut through the key flow within the swordsman. A single sword, 2 swords, 3 swords. The long river of Song Mingchuan has been divided into several streams by me, and if every plant is a soldier, then follow these trends. Finding his sword is the gap. I took a step forward. A withered branch stopped 3 inches in front of his eyebrow. His sword also stopped 3 inches in front of my shoulder. If it were truly a life or death battle, maybe it's a case of losing both. But the sword has its rules. I clicked ahead of him. Song Mingchuan sheathed his sword. He said calmly, "I lost." The entire audience fell silent for a moment. Applause broke out immediately. This applause wasn't for Xinghu himself. Instead, it was a clean sword exchange. I retract the withered branches. He bowed to him. Yield. As he stepped down from the arena, Jiu Lingxiao stood to the side. Congratulations. You are only 1 step away from the Pahuang Sword Fist. Who will be your opponent in the finals? According to the original list, it should be another disciple of the Holy Emperor, but just now, the team was replaced. I stopped in my tracks. Lu Jinhong had already been defeated on the Qingxian Sword Inquiry platform. How could he represent the Holy Emperor in the finals? He was temporarily accepted as an outer swordsman by the 10,000 Sword Saint Emperor, eligible to be a substitute. The sword slave seal deepened. It seems they will use him to block you. In the distance, Lu Jinhong stood in the shadows. His golden red sword did not make a sound, like a sword completely sealed off its will. I am not angry. I just feel it's a pity. Former top of the Qingxian ranking, he could have walked his own path, but time and again, he chose to borrow power. In the end, he handed himself over as well. The finals will begin after the time it takes to burn an incense stick. Pahuang Sword Fist was at the highest point of the venue. The whole body is like a pure moon, as if it could wash away the dust. I gripped the dry branch tightly. The final battle. It's not just about winning the championship. It was also to make sure everyone could see it. Borrowed locks. In the end, it cannot lock down the true sword. At the start of the finals, a fine rain fell above Tianjin City. The rain was very light, landing on the edge of the ring. It emits a crisp sound. Lu Jinhong stood across from her. He was eerily quiet. He no longer had the pride he once had, nor was there any impatience on the sword inquiry platform, like a sword held in someone's hand, just waiting for the order to be issued. Lu Jinhong. Do you still want to beat me? Carrying out the imperial decree, I bow to you. It's not that I want to bow to you. This is in accordance with the imperial decree. I sighed. The referee announced the start of the game. Lu Jinhong instantly drew her sword. This sword strike was far stronger than his time at Master Qingxian. Speed, strength, and sword intent were all pushed to the limit, and it can become even stronger. The clearer I heard, his own sword sound was already very weak. The golden red sword was crying, not a wailing cry. Instead, it is a struggle. I didn't retreat, and the grasses and trees all spread out like soldiers. Raindrops, the sound of wind, the tiny grass in the cracks of the arena, all of it becomes my perception. Lu Jinhong's sword kept closing in. I cried my heart out again and again. No one below the platform spoke. Everyone could tell. This was no ordinary contest. The sword slave seal inside Lu Jinhong's body grew brighter and brighter. On the distant sacred land seat, haunted house, still not using sound. Be careful. They forcibly pressed the printing. I heard Lu Jinhong's chest. The sound of a very small grey cracking came from the air. That was the blood mark's wild backlash. We can't delay any longer. If they let them force their way like this, he could master his entire Sword Dao foundation. They forcibly pushed her away like this. His entire foundation in swordsmanship would be completely destroyed. This battle must be resolved. I absolutely cannot watch him be broken as a tool. I don't like Lu Jinhong, nor will he forgive what he has done before, but I don't want to see a sword cultivator completely broken as a tool. I lift the dry branch. The embryonic form of the heaven-slaying sword intent fell. Not to execute people. This is the seal of execution. Withered branches pierced through the sword's light. It touched 1 inch in front of Lu Jinhong's brow. The intent of the formless sword probes the enemy. A system notification sounded. Sword slave mark detected, and can be seized. High risk, I thought to myself. The sword slave seal fiercely resisted. At the sanctuary seat, the elder king suddenly stood up. Stop. At the sword gathering, do not interfere with the ring. On the arena, Lu Jinhong's face turned pale. A trace of clarity finally returned to his eyes. She looked at me. The voice was extremely soft. Why? I didn't answer, and wept until he trembled. I forcibly pulled out that sword slave seal. It transformed into a cold sword light, breaking open in the palm of your hand. He drew his sword and succeeded. Gained. Fragment of the sword slave seal of the Holy Land. Triggers critical hits and returns. Gained. The bronze prototype of the Powang sword. Lu Jinhong lost her support. Then she knelt down. The golden red sword also landed on the arena. A weary yet free clarity is sounded. This year's Eastern Wilderness Sword Gathering. The winner. Eastern Wilderness Sword Gathering. The winner. Lin Yuan. I ignored them, heading toward Powang Sword Spring. The spring water is clear and cool. When it falls into the palm of your hand, it felt as if countless tiny swords had washed over my eyes. Pain came, but it wasn't hard to endure, like a door sealed away for years. Finally, a crack was pushed open. I heard the two seals in my eyes loosen at the same time. Deep in his left eye, there was a warm sword light like the dawn. Deep in his right eye, there was a shadow of a sword as silent as a long night. They were sealed for 20 years. At this moment, it only moved slightly. It made me so in pain I could barely stand. In the next instant, I saw it. Not a complete world, just a ray of light. Vague, weak, but it truly exists. I saw Master standing below the stage. His white clothes were as white as snow. Tears glistened in his eyes, but he smiled. I saw Yi Qingli wave vigorously. He saw Ji-Yu Lingxiao standing nearby. His expression was complicated. He also saw people from the 10,000 Sword Sanctuary in the distance. He was staring at me with a cold gaze. I looked up, looking toward the blurry skylight. So that's what light is all about. A chi whispered in my sea of corpses. Kid, this is just the beginning. I gripped the dry branch tightly. Yes. The seal was only opened for a short time. Ji-Yu Wuya was still deep within the sacred land. The Lin family's old affairs were far from over. But today, I took the first step, a blind disciple who emerged from Hanifeng. This blind disciple, finally, I saw my own first ray of light. After the capture of the sword was completely dispersed, Tianjian City was still in an uproar. I stood on the high platform, the light and shadows before my eyes blurred. Elder Minghui Robe stepped into the air and rose into the air. He said coldly, Lin Yuan, you used dark magic in the arena, forcibly seizing the Lu Jinghun sword seal. This matter must be investigated with me back to the Holy Land. The sword assembly was watched by everyone. He won with honor and honor. Xiao Hani, you're a Qingxian Feng master. No right to question the sacred land. Qing Xuanzong took the seat. Shen Daoxian remained silent. Yi Qingling said angrily, Sect leader. Senior brother Lin won first place for Qingxian. Aren't you going to talk? Shen Daoxian finally spoke, but not speaking for me. Lin Yuan, if the Holy Emperor only asked, you come with them. It can also prove innocence. I laughed, even though I had known he would be like this. But when you truly hear it, he still felt a chill in his heart. The sect leader's meaning. It was asking me to entrust my life to the 10,000 Sword Saint Emperor. Don't act on impulse. If I go, can you come back? It's not up to you. He raised his hand. In the void, the sword condensed into a chain, falling toward me. The sword lock had not yet come close. Ji-Yu Lingxiao suddenly drew his sword. The sword light swept across, fastened the chain. The whole venue was shaken. Ji-Yu Lingxiao, how dare you stop me? The sword abandons its rules and rules. The leader can be witnessed by the various sects of the Eastern Wilderness. If the elder insists on taking the top spot in public, this is to make the Holy Emperor lose trust with the world. You know what you're talking about. I know. I also know about the sword enslavement within Lu Jinhong's body. He shouldn't have appeared on the Sword Society arena. As soon as he said this, many sect elders had changed their expressions. The phrase sword slave is just 3 words. Too sensitive. If the Holy Emperor secretly uses the sword seal to control the contestants. Today's matter was not just Ling Yuan controlling the contestants. Today's matter was not just Ling Yuan's concern. It was the entire Donghuang Sword Society's public faction. The running elder flashed with killing intent. Just then, A gentle yet weighty voice. It came from above Tianjian City. The sword gathering has already been decided to determine the leader. Then proceed according to the rules. Everyone looked up. An elderly man in blue robes descended upon the clouds. Lord of Tianjian City, Luo Wenju, Lin Yuan. Would you be willing to stay in Tianjian City for 3 days? Within 3 days, no sect is allowed to forcibly take you away. I am willing. 3 days later. Let's see who can still protect you. He swept his sleeve and left. Shen Daoxian also turned away, distracted. I gazed at his blurry back. Suddenly, he felt a sense of calm inside. Qing Xuanzong. From this moment on, it was no longer my way out. And Hanifeng. Yes. The sealing sword only loosened. It was never truly removed. The Huang sword was broken in its original form. It allows you to briefly see light and shadow. But if you force your eyes, people will turn their gaze back. Late at night, footsteps sounded outside the courtyard. Senior brother Lin, Lu Jinhong arrived. I walked to the door. Lu Jinhong stood in the rain. His face was deathly pale. Jinhong Jian was held in her arms. See me come out. She was silent for a long time. Suddenly, he knelt down in the knot of the body. Yi Qingli was startled. What do you do? I owe you my life. I draw my sword to enslave. It's not for you to vent. I know. His voice was hoarse. But if it weren't for you, I know. But if it weren't for you, I will become a sword in the saint's hand without my own. Speak up. Sword slave. It was the sect leader who took me to plant it. Me. After losing to you, my sword heart was damaged. The sect leader said my saintly brother has a way to help me rebuild my foundation. But only after the middle bardo did I find out. This is not recasting, it's a deal. I asked who planted the seal. The grey-robed elder, his name was Buchenju. He said, if I could destroy your sword heart at the sword gathering. Then he took me into the sacred land. Master's gaze was icy cold. Destroy the spirit abyss sword heart. Lu Jinhong lowered her head. Yes, who truly understands the meaning? Report to the elders. His name was Ji Yu Chenju. He said, if I could destroy your sword heart at the sword gathering. Then he took me into the sacred land. Destroy the spirit abyss sword heart. Why was Ji Yu Chenju in such a hurry? Ancient artifacts are elegant, and the gates are closed, preparing to depart. Wang Jian needed the final key. A key is usually a sealed piece in your eyes. Also, the sect leader will expel Hanifeng in 3 days. He has submitted the documents to the Holy Land. It was said that Uncle Xiao secretly kept the remnants of generations, betraying Qingxian, but the master remained unusually calm. He just asked where the documents were. Lu Jinhong took out an imperial slip. The copy I stole out. Master took the imperial scroll. His expression remained unchanged, but a chill surfaced in his palm. What do you plan to do in the future? No? Paired with the pure and mysterious ones, nor worthy to be sewn into winter clothes, I will stay in Tianjian City and wait for the sacred land to hold them accountable. If you really want to repay the debt, alive. Living as a witness, proving despising slavery, proof of Shen Daoxian, proving the sacred land interfered in the cheap marriage. All right, that night, the wind and rain did not stop, and I finally confirmed that 3 days later what awaited me was not the Tea Road, but the entire place. The net cast down by the 10,000 sword sanctuary. Early the next morning, Luo Wenju summoned the elders of the various sects. Lu Jinhong publicly admitted that she had been enslaved by the heavy sword. He also handed over the sword-riding dungeon for Shen Daoxian to travel between the sacred land and the sacred land. Sect leader, you said Lin Yuan was the person the Holy Land wanted that day. As long as he handed it over, Qingxian would get 3 spirit ores. 10 years at the top spot. Do you want to deny that as well? Countless gazes fell on Shen Daoxian. He was finally no longer gentle. Absurd. The master stepped forward and took out the imperial scroll. What about this document? The imperial edict was unfolded. Inside was the secret document Shen Daoxian had presented to the Holy Emperor. Every word and sentence calls me a remnant of the living being. Hanifeng is called a hideout. The disciples of Qingxian erupted in an uproar. Some people couldn't believe it. Someone lowered their head in silence. Some people finally understood. Why has Hanifeng been sidelined by the main peak all these years? Xiao Hani, you really want to ruin Qingxian for an outsider's disciple? The one who destroyed Qingxian was not Lin Yuan, Shen Daoxian. The phrase Emperor Xuanzong of Qing raised me for 20 years. You've said it many times. Isn't it? I do not deny the kindness of Emperor Xuanzong of Qing, but this favor does not belong to you. Hanifeng gave me food and clothing. Master taught me to groom. Junior Sister Yi and all your fellow disciples once traveled with me. And killed Hanifeng. I will surely draw his sword, and cut his sword. The broken sword shattered into 2 pieces. The whole room fell silent. Ruo Wenju looked at Shen Daoxian. Master Shen, this matter will be recorded by Tianjian City. Within 3 days, you must not take Lin Yuan or Hanifeng with you. Shen Daoxuan's face turned extremely grim. Jiyu Chenju was not present, but I knew he must be watching from the shadows. The Holy Emperor would not retreat just because he hadn't met him. They will only be more anxious. After returning to the Forbidden Courtyard, Master asked me, regret? I shook my head. I used to think he would be very sad to be abandoned by Qingxian, but once he actually said it, it actually made things easier. What about me? I'm also Hanifeng's man. If you stay, it will be very dangerous in the future. It will be very dangerous. I'm afraid of danger, but even more fearful is having no conscience. The second night, Jiyu Lingxiao arrived. She didn't enter through the main entrance. Instead, he stepped on the wall and landed in the courtyard. Yi Qingli nearly drew his sword. She raised her hand to signal him. Don't shout. I'm not here to fight. The sword son of the Holy Land came here late at night, not afraid of being accused of colluding with outsiders. The current 10,000 sword sent emperor may not still recognize me as a sword disciple. You should take a look. I couldn't see the details clearly, yet one could sense that the sword intent of the figure in the painting was extremely strong, like the cold sun hanging high in the sky. A Qi's voice grew deep, ancient and boundless. Why are you showing me this? Because the arrival 3 days later might not be Gu Chengcheng. It was an incarnation of his sword intent. Sword intent avatar. Jiyu Wuya secluded himself for 20 years. The true body may not be able to emerge, but if he descended with a sword intent incarnation, Tianjian City couldn't hold out for long. You want Lin Yuan to escape. I want him to make a choice. After activating the breaking yellow sword fist, beneath Tianjian City lies an old sword path. It leads to the northern wasteland. If you leave now, there is still a chance. But Master's Mountain Jade. Yi Qingli's cultivation was not high. Lu Jinhong wanted to stay and testify. If I flee alone, the Holy Emperor will vent his anger on them. You can't take everyone with you. Then I won't leave. You still can't beat Jiyu Wuyang. I know. Knowing is still about staying behind, because some swords can never be drawn once withdrawn. You're not what I thought. What do you think I'll do? I thought Lin's fish vein would be filled with hatred. He only thought about taking revenge on the Holy Emperor, but a Qi had said so. Hatred is the easiest to exploit, a Qi. Young Jiyu Jiao, do not recklessly draw close alliances. Why are you helping me? Because I want to know too. Watching the crows, because I want to know too. What exactly did Jiyu Wuyo achieve with the 10,000 sword Saint Emperor? The next day at midnight, the Holy Emperor will take action. Jiyu Qinxia will be responsible for catching you. Shen Daoxue was responsible for trapping the little kite. If you do not run, get ready to draw a truly terrifying sword. For the first time, I looked at my master's blurry figure. He said softly, this time, I'm blocking the conversation. The time has not yet come. The wind immortal of Tianjian City was cold. The lights outside the forbidden courtyard went out one by one. It is not that it has been blown out by the wind. Instead, The flames were cut off by some kind of sword. The master stood in front of the courtyard gate. The Linglong sword heart glowed slightly. Yiqingli Wojian stood behind him. His face turned a bit pale, but he did not retreat. I sat on the stone steps in the courtyard, and wept as he lay across his knees. A Qi whispered, "Here it comes." The next moment, footsteps sounded outside the courtyard wall. Very light, but neatly. Jiyu Chengju appeared first, waving my robe. Without wind, I move on its own. Behind him followed more than 10 saint emperors cultivating the way. Everyone had a faint sense of insight in their brows. Lin Yuan, the 3-day period is not yet complete, but you are suspected of stealing the Holy Emperor's advice. The evidence is conclusive. Come with me today. Hanifeng may be spared from being implicated. You want it. Hanifeng was implicated. You want to make a move in Tianjin City. Luo Wenju was already being held back. No one will come to save you. But immediately after, there was yet another path even higher. For colder ones, it's recommended to press down. Trap the people in the heart of the city. Bu Wuyo's suggestion transformed into a transformation. My eyes stung slightly. Even if it was just an avatar, that sword intent seemed to fall from the very top of the sky, looking down upon all living beings. Jiyu Chenju raised his hand. Take it down. More than 10 sword cultivators from the sacred land struck simultaneously. Master took a step forward. The exquisite sword intent unfolded like snow would. He blocked the first wave of sword light completely. Yiqingli gritted her teeth and followed. Though the sword is weak, yet extremely steady, I didn't move immediately, because the real killer move isn't on these people. Just as expected, Jiyu Chenju suddenly disappeared. In the next instant, he appeared beside me. His 5 fingers were like swords. Raise my eyes straight up. Sealing sword, belongs to the sacred land. Wuji lifted his head. The formless sword intent met his fingertips. A soft sound. I took 3 steps back, and his palms went numb. Jiyu Chenju also stopped. A flash of surprise crossed his eyes. The Wangjian was broken in its original form. He has already been able to grasp my sword path. I smiled. A single stroke fails to slow down. Jiyu Chenju's expression turned cold. He struck again. The sword's intent cannot be fully transformed. The sword intent shattered into a deathly shatter, wrapping around my limbs, between the shadows of the nose. Within his sword intent was a fragmentary text of enslavement. I changed my steps, using all the grass and trees as weapons to stir the old trees in the courtyard at night. Hundreds of fallen leaves flew up at the same time. Cut the chain toward the fine blade. The moment the chain was weakened, I cried out loudly. Not Jiyu Chenju. It was the sword script that the dozen or so sword cultivators behind him had no intention of carelessness. Jiyu Chenju's expression changed dramatically. Don't you dare. The formless sword intent surged. Several saint brothers and sword cultivators groaned in unison. My eyes briefly regained clarity. The formation was in chaos. Master seized this moment. Exquisite sword light sweeps across the cloth, forcing away all things. A good field. No wonder the Holy Lord insisted. Please advise, Your Majesty. The Lin family has left their son for 20 years. Kid. Don't let him take it to heart. Jiyu Wuyo's sword avatar hovered in the night sky. He didn't rush to act. He just lowered his gaze to look at me. It was like looking at an old item that had been lost and recovered. That kind of gaze made me very uncomfortable. I gripped the dry branch tightly. You know me, Brother Feng, Jiyu Wuyo said calmly. Recognition, just 2 simple words, but it made all the voices in the courtyard fall silent. Master looked at me. There was worry in his eyes. How did they die? Dying from useless persistence. Don't believe him. He is best at calling others' sacrifices foolish. Jiyu Wuyo seemed to hear a Qi's voice. His gaze shifted slightly. So you were still here. Looking back at Hu Yang, and it has been 20 years since I have not seen him. You're still like a broken sword that no one has used for it. Bold. Lin Yuan. Within you is the final legacy to descend into the world. 2 swords of restriction were sealed in his eyes. You're not an ordinary heir. You are the final key to the Myriad World Sword Platform. I finally heard the full answer from the opinion. Myriad Realm Sword Platform, key, sealing sword. These words are like nails. Nailed me into the past. These words are like nails. nailing into the 20 blank years of my past. Follow me back to the Holy Land. I can let you see the whole truth. Your eyes will be restored. You will obtain the most complete swordsmanship in the world. What is the cost? Become the master of the sword embryo. It doesn't sound like a bad thing. You just need to give up some useless money. For example, Master, Xiao Han Yi saved you, but it also traps you. Loyalty makes the sword hesitate. Hesitation makes the sword impure. My sword doesn't need you to define whether it's pure or not. Your father said the same thing back then. And then he lost. Someone fled holding a baby. A woman blocked the sword with her body. A man turned around and burned until blood burned out. I couldn't see their faces clearly, but her heart ached as if it were being torn open. A chi shouted angrily. All right. A sword cry exploded from within the stone sea. I snapped back to reality. A blood bleed from the corner of his mouth. Did you see that? They can't hold you back. Nor can they guard their own path. He kept his own way. I only saw them never hand me over to you until their deaths. Then go get the keys. Master wanted to step forward, but he was blocked by a witness suddenly appearing by Shen Daoxian. Han Yi, don't keep making mistakes. Shen Daoxian. Ignoring fear, it was as if he was asking me, pull it out or not. As soon as Wu Wuya's sword fell, I didn't retreat. Retreating is useless. Those are not chains that cannot be completed, nor is it a reference for Lu Jinhong. It was a wisp of wool close to the source of swordsmanship. I lift the dry branch, but his arm instantly split open into a dense river of blood. The gap is huge. Kid, don't force yourself. Now draw the sealing sword. Meet in the next life. It could even be fatal. I asked softly, not pulling it out. A chi remained silent, but it could not be taken. The master will be interrogated until he is trapped and dies. Yi Qingli couldn't stop the Holy Land cultivators. Lu Jinhong's testimony will be silenced. Tianjian City would also be overwhelmed and bow its head. There are some options. It's never about appearing when you're ready. I closed my eyes. In the darkness, that faint glimmer of broken vitality still remained. I saw two swords hanging in my eyes. One stalk like the morning light. The sound of swords rang out. One stalk like a long night. The sword's edge is carved to extinguish. What shook the moment was the sound of the scepter. He was sealed for 20 years, but there was not a trace of resentment. He seemed to be waiting for me to speak. I reached out with consciousness, gripping the hilt of the sword. The pain exploded instantly. In reality, my eyes were bleeding. Unaware of this, he also gave rise to an overwhelming and passionate heart. Spirit person, stop. I really wanted to hear what he said. From childhood to adulthood, I listened to him the most, but this time it won't work. Master. This time, let me be willful this time. The sword intent pressing down on Ji Wuya suddenly stopped. For the first time, Ji Wuya's voice stirred, and a sword was drawn at the moment. If you've pulled it out, don't hesitate. Borrowing the greenwood sword and spirit dragon protects the heart and nourishes the body. I don't fully understand, but I believe him. Qingmu Sheng's sword intent surged from within him, and joined with Sheng's sword. The withered grass in the courtyard rose again. Broken branches sprout tender shoots. Even the Jinhong sword in Lu Jinhong's hand rang out a new name after sound. I swung my first sword, no intent to kill. Yet the sword Ji Wuya had dropped gradually faded away inch by inch, not to be shattered. Instead, it stripped him of the power to continue oppressing. Wherever the sword passed, the sword skull's remnants shattered. Several Saint Emperor sword cultivators knelt on the ground, gasping for breath. His eyes were restored to clarity. The trapping formation on the master also appeared with a command. Shen Daoxuan's face changed dramatically. Impossible. He activated the sword formation. He wanted to trap his master again. I turned to look at him. This time, I saw his outline. Vague, but it was clear enough for me to draw my sword. Shen Daoxian. Enough for the elders. If you really want to betray the Holy Emperor. If the Holy Emperor were left with nothing but lowly servants and possession of a body, so what if they rebelled? In the night sky, Ji Wuya looked down at everything. His avatar was weakened by the light of the Sword of Life, but it did not dissipate. He looked at me. He said slowly, "You are more dangerous than your father." My eyes were bleeding uncontrollably. He still smiled. Then you'd better remember. Ji Wuya raised his hand. It seemed he was about to draw his sword again. But in the distance, in the direction of the city lord's mansion, a single path of clarity is finally achieved. But in the distance, in the direction of the city lord's mansion, a path of central clarity finally broke through the blockade. Ji Wuya, the heavenly sword city is your sword pool. 3 months later, the 10,000 Swords Holy Land will open. Lin Yuan, you will do it yourself. The night sky returned to calm. The light of the sword in my hand faded away. Once again, it became a seal in his eyes. The next moment, I collapsed. The last thing I heard was, it was the master's panicked voice. It seemed like the first time I had heard him so scared. When I woke up, it was already 3 days later. There was a medicine box inside the room, very faint, but it reminded me of Hanifeng's taste of the master's herbal decoction in winter. I opened my eyes. The world remains blurry, but it's no longer just light and shadow. I saw the outline of the curtain. Seeing the teacup on the table, he saw a woman in white sitting by the bedside. Master, she seemed to be asleep. His hand was still pressing on my pulse gate. I want to speak, but he found his throat was extremely dry. The slight movement woke her up. She immediately bent down. Lin Yuan. I nodded. A light flashed in his master's eyes for a moment, but it quickly suppressed again. Calm returned. Don't act recklessly. You forced your sword to injure your eye vessels and the blade's belly. Are you okay? Yi Qingli was lightly injured. Lu Jinhong was protected by Tianjian City. Tianjian City was protected. Ji Yu Lingxiao temporarily stayed in the city. The Holy Land has temporarily retreated. Then, I saw a thin white streak beside the master, but it was glaring. I was stunned. Master, your hair. He turned his face slightly, as if trying to avoid it, which made my heart ache. It doesn't get in the way. I don't want to hear that. If you feel you owe me, then live well. Stop treating yourself as a sword that can be broken at will. Come in, you. Do you know you slept for 3 days? First, Tianjian City has summoned the Sword Slave Seal Warrior to the Eastern Wilderness. The 10,000 Sword Saint Emperor gave birth to the 10,000 Sword Saint Emperor, and his reputation suffered. He won't act openly in the short term. Second, Shen Daoxian had already returned to Qingxian to announce Hanifeng's rebellion. It will open in 3 days. He still has the nerve to judge us. Sect judgment. He is not judging you. It must be under the pressure of the Holy Land. Suppress all opposition within Qingxian. I want to go back. You can't move. Hanifeng is my home. The house is about to be torn down. How could I not go back? Master fell silent. A moment later, he reached out and put my coat over me. Then let's go back together. 3 months from now is the land of 10,000 swords. But before that, for now, I need to return to Qingyuan first and get Hanifeng back from Shen Daoxian. On the road to Qingxian, I didn't foresee it, not because I didn't want to, but because whenever I activated my sword intent now, it felt as if my vision was being misunderstood. Master said, this is the first move after forcibly drawing the sword. You need to rest quietly and use the sword less, and rarely showed off his strength. I listened very attentively, then asked him, what if Shen Daoxian made the first move? You hide behind me first, because... You've heard this since you were a child, you. In person. The atmosphere along the way should have been heavy, but with him around, he could crush the heaviness like a pot of coal-boiling spiritual porridge. Lu Jinhong also went along. Her injuries had not yet healed. His face remained pale, holding the golden red sword. The whole journey was as silent as a stone. Yi Qingli found her annoying. He would occasionally tease her. Senior brother Lu, weren't you always good at talking? How did it turn into a family good now? Most of what I said before wasn't kind. Speak little in the book. leaves 3 times its virtue. Yi Qingli was momentarily stunned. I found it quite amusing. If a person really falls from a height, can you stand up again? It depends on what happens after she breaks apart. Are you willing to pick yourself up piece by piece? Lu Jinhong was still picking it up. Pick up the pieces you pick up and take them back. Lu Jinhong was still trimming. Cut slowly, but it's still better than pretending it never broke. If Wenju didn't travel with him, he stayed in Tianjian City, suppressed the surface movements of the 10,000 Swords Holy Land for us. But he gave me a Qingyu sword axe. He said, if Qingxian really wanted to drive Han Feng to the brink, crush him, Tianjian City will testify. I hold my sword and axe. He bowed to him. Ruo Wenju said with a smile, there is no need to thank me. I just don't want the sword soul of Eastern Wilderness to come from now on. Turns out, whoever has the bigger fist gets the final shot. Suddenly, I thought, Eastern Wilderness is not all cold swords. At least some people are willing to keep the rules about to be crushed. She bent down to help him up. When he returned to Qingxian Mountain Gate, the sky was dark. The mountain gate was filled with disciples. There is a main style. There is a law enforcement hall. There were also outer disciples Han Feng was familiar with before. They see us, each with a different expression. Someone averted their gaze. Someone secretly looked up. Someone also whispered in a voice, Senior Brother Lin has returned. Very light, but I heard it. Shen Daoxian did not come in person. It was Elder Zhu who had arrived. He stood on the stone steps of the mountain gate, holding the sect leader's command. The voice was cold and hard. Hangshan 1, Lin Yuan, Yi Qingliu, Lu Jinhong, and left the sect without permission, disrupting the sword gathering, colluding with external clans. He was immediately brought into the Hall of Law Enforcement to receive the trial. We seize it for Qingxian. We won the championship for Qingxian, also known as the Disruptive Sword Society. Then what do you usually say about Duo Wen? Are you especially well behaved? Reckless. Master looked up. He only said 2 words. Lead the way. Elder Zhu was stunned. He probably thought we would argue at the mountain gate. Then he could take the opportunity to label him as an resistant order. But Master did not. I didn't either, because what you really want to say is right. He shouldn't have told the few people in front of the mountain gate. If you want to talk about it, go to the law enforcement hall. He said this in front of the entire Qingxian sect. The execution hall was lit with lights reaching like clouds. Shen Daoxian sat in the main seat. Elders from both sides gathered. Lu Jinhong's master was also present. When the old man saw Lu Jinhong, his eyes flickered slightly, but in the end, he didn't speak. I heard his fingers trembling slightly in his sleeve. There was some silence, not indifference. It was after being overwhelmed by too many rules and fears. Not sure if he could still speak. Shen Daoxian looked at us. The voice remained steady. Xiao Hani, do you know your guilt? Master said, I don't know. You're hiding Lin Yuan, defying the sect's arrangements. He clashed with the Holy Land at the sword gathering, putting Qingxian in danger. Yet he was unaware of his crime. Master said calmly, all I know is, I saved a child. Protecting a disciple. He guarded the bottom line that Qingxian sword cultivators should most uphold. Shen Daoxuan's gaze darkened. Lin Yuan, what about you? I leaned on a withered branch and stood in the hall. The vision was still unclear, but I could see his outline. He could also hear the sword wing inside him, more restless than before, like a cold sparrow locked in a cage, rushing to crash outside. I said, I am not guilty either. You publicly declared that you and Qingxian Zhu Feng Yen are friends from afar, and you still dare to claim you don't know your crime. What I cut off is your decree for acting selfishly in the name of the sect. It was not the path established by Patriarch Duan Qingshuan. The hall fell silent. Shen Daoxian slowly stood up. How dare you, a mere disciple, judge the sect leader? I didn't retreat. If the sect leader remains the sect leader, the disciples naturally remain calm. If the sect leader becomes someone else's sword sheath, it only hides and fouls NATO. Then I'll ask, should Qingshuan's sword still be drawn? Bold, Elder Zhu, you'd better not rush. You don't have the sword intent of the sacred land on you. Yet 7 sword breaths remained, sent to deliver messages for the sacred land. Nonsense. I smiled gently. The formless sword intent dispersed. Several sword lanterns in the hall lit up simultaneously. The sword lantern is an antique of the law enforcement hall. It is said that it can reveal whether disciples' insight is lacking. In the past, it was just a display, because for many years, no one dared to let it truly shine. But at this moment, the sword lamp shone on Elder Ju. 7 faint grey sword objects appeared on his sleeve. The hall was in an uproar. Elder Ju took half a step back. That's impossible, a Chi said lazily. In my sea of corpses, I once saw such a message, not bad at hiding, just afraid of seeing the lights. The law enforcement hall is essential. Then investigate thoroughly. Before reviewing Han's first seal, first, conduct a thorough examination. Who is it that leads the path of Qingxian, sneakily pouncing at the foot of the sacred land? Shen Daoxuan's expression finally darkened. He raised his hand. Suddenly, the lamp dimmed. Enough. Master stepped forward. The exquisite sword heart is clear and bright. The sect leader was scared. Shen Daoxian stared at him. Han Yi, are you really trying to force me? You forced Qingxian. An elder with white hair suddenly stood up. He was an elder of the Sutra Pavilion. He rarely speaks on ordinary days. At this moment, he spoke tremblingly. Sect leader. The sword lamp was already lit. Then it should be illuminated to the end. Even you want to side with Hanifeng. I don't stand with Hanifeng, nor did he stand on the main peak. I stood and saw the sword rules left by Patriarch Xian. With the first person, there was already a second person. Lu Jinhong's master finally stood up. He looked at Lu Jinhong. The voice was hoarse, golden red. You say. Lu Jinhong knelt down, holding her sword, not kneeling to Shen Daoxian. Instead, he knelt before the portrait of Patriarch Qingxian. Disciple Lu Jinhong. He once harbored jealousy and resentment toward Lin Yuan, once greedily sought external assistance, and once believed the words of the sect leader. Accept the Holy Emperor's advice, manifesting as a sword in someone else's hand. This matter is my fault. I am willing to accept the sect rule's punishment, but the sect leader handed Hanifeng a document to the Holy Emperor, to seek justice in exchange for benefits. That's true. That's true. I have foresight as proof. Shen Daoxian didn't stop him, because it was already unstoppable. Foresee the unfolding. Word by word, the secret text appeared. Everyone inside the hall could see everything clearly. I heard many disciples breathing unevenly. Perhaps they started doubting Hanifeng. Doubt me, doubting Master. But when the evidence was laid out, they finally found out. It turned out that Qingxian, the mountain where they had been recuperating for many years, a corner had already been hollowed out from inside. Shen Daoxian was silent for a long time. Suddenly, he laughed. You think this will shake me? He raised his hand. A tremendous sword cry echoed from the depths of the main wind. The entire Qingxian mountain range trembled lightly. The white-haired elder's face changed dramatically. Sect leader, you need to activate the Qingxian sect guarding sword formation. Shen Daoxuan's voice was icy cold. The profound and clear must not be disturbed. Since someone is trying to cause trouble, then I'll shake them down first. The sword formation activated. Countless swords rose from outside the hall, like a vast net, pressing down on Hanifeng's lineage. The master was about to draw his sword, but I pressed his wrist first. Master, I'll do it. He frowned. Your eyes? I will not draw my sword. I whispered. Today, he drew Qingxuan's own sword. The Qingxian sect guarding sword formation is very powerful, but he was not Shen Daoxuan's sword. He was left behind by generations of Qingxian predecessors to guard him. The sword left behind to guard the sect. If Shen Daoxian were to use him to guard the mountain, he then guarded the sect's formation. If Shen Daoxian used him to oppress the innocent, he would hesitate, and as long as the sword hesitates, Wuxiang Jianyi could ask him a question. What you truly want to protect? Who is it? I closed my eyes, not looking. Just listen. Listen to the vibrations of the 108 Jian eyes in the main feudal formation. Hearing Hanifeng's direction, the wind and snow were unsettled. Listening to the golden pavilion, one can witness Qingming, listening to the ancient practice before the patriarch's portrait. After a long silence, finally, a sigh-like suggestion was made. A system notification sounded, detected the lingering reverberation of the original heart in the Qingxian Zhenzong formation. You can ask questions and answers. Risk, central guide. Would you like to ask for answers? I thought to myself. Question. The next moment, the entire law enforcement hall was lit up brightly. The withered branch in my hand hasn't grown stronger. I haven't stepped into any invincible realm either. But all the sword shadows falling on Hanifeng, they all stopped in midair. They seemed to remember something. I remember when I was first forged, not to cover up the sect leader's embarrassment. Instead, It was to protect the disciples of Qingxian, protect the mountain gate during Qingming. Shen Daoxuan's expression changed dramatically. What did you do? I didn't do anything. I just asked them. Do you still recognize the character Xian? As soon as he finished speaking, the formation traces and sword formation suddenly reversed, not attacking Shen Daoxian. Instead, it connected him to the external sword seal, layer upon layer of separation. The sword imprint within Shen Daoxian screamed instantly. His figure flickered. His face turned grim. Ji Yu Chenzhou's voice came from the distant void. Shen Daoxian couldn't even suppress a junior anymore. Shen Daoxian said angrily, "Shut up." This voice was heard clearly by everyone in the hall. The white-haired elder closed his eyes for a moment. Sect leader, you really have long been connected to the sacred land. Shen Daoxian remained silent. After a long while, he seemed to have suddenly lost all his strength. I just want Qingxian to become stronger. Holy Land gives sword points, provide resources, giving Qingxian the path upward. What did I do wrong? You were mistaken for treating your disciples as bargaining chips, treating the sect as a stepping stone, treating the way of the sword as a trade. Cold and restless. If you had handed over Li Yuan back then, Qingxian was no longer the Qingxian he was today. If I hand him over, I am not myself either. To purify the profound, nor me. In order to purify the ancestral regulations, if the sect leader is constrained by the external seal, and may no longer hold the sect sword command, Shen Daoxian, hand over the sect leader's token. Elder Ju. Don't make any more mistakes. Elder Ju looked at the entire hall filled with lights. In the end, he bowed his head in defeat. Shen Daoxian stood there for a long time, so long that even the sky outside the hall was turning pale. Finally, he took out the sect leader's order. He placed it in front of the patriarch's portrait. I can withdraw. But Lin Yuan, do you think that's the end of it? The Holy Land wants people, never gave up. I know. Then you still dare to reply to Qingxian. Because before going home, you always have to sweep the dust off the door first. Shen Daoxuan's cultivation was sealed by the town's sword formation, sending him into the rear hills, recalling the elegance of the past. Not execution, not humiliation. He was only allowed to stand before the ancestor's sword arm. Listen again. Qingxuan's earliest sword sound. Elder Ju and the others were also praised as soon as they were enforced. The teaching was jointly praised by Xu Feng. The case was jointly reviewed by Xu Feng. Currently, the position of sect leader is temporarily vacant. I still ask Lord Xiaofeng to wait for the sect leader. I only care about Hanifeng. He couldn't control so many people eating, cultivating swords, and arguing. Master, you make it sound like the sect leader is in Zhuju every day. Finally, Qingxian Everest recommended an elder with white hair to temporarily manage clan affairs. The master presides over the established laws. I replied to Hanifeng, because I really need to recover. Hanifeng became lively again. Disciples who used to be suppressed by the main peak and didn't dare to come. Now everyone secretly goes up the mountain. Someone brought medicine. Someone brought spiritual fruit. Someone gave me a little linghe, as fat as a ball. Yi Qingli liked it terribly. She named him Xiao Bai. I touched the little spirit crane. Seriously, he didn't even think about it. The name should be taken in reverse. That way, he felt he could grow any longer. I remained silent. Living peacefully, like a dream, I practice swordsmanship every morning. Not much practice. Practice only 3 times. The first passage is plants and trees are soldiers. The second recitation of the Wuxiang listening sword. The third time he didn't use a sword. Just sitting in the snow. Listen to the wind of honey wind. Complaining that you progress too slowly. Practice like you do. 3 months later, I went to the Holy Land. Could it be that they want to buy it for Ji Yu Hui? Perform the twig shake 3 times. That's pretty good too. At least there's some thoughtfulness. Your aura here is not smooth. First, guide the return to the Dantian. Don't rush to draw your sword. And this trace of Wuxiang sword intent. But the pressure was too harsh. It must be taken back. Lu Jinhong also stayed in the small courtyard outside Hanifeng. She did not join Hanifeng, only come daily to the mountain path to sweep snow. You are atonement. And he was still taking the work of menial disciples. Forget it, Later, outer disciples came up the mountain, seeing the former chief shoveling snow. He was so scared he didn't dare walk. Lu Jinhong stepped aside. He also said, "Take your time. Snow blossoms." The disciple nearly fell on the spot. I laughed for a long time after hearing that. Lu Jinhong was clueless either. She simply lowered her head to look at the golden red sword. He said softly, "I used to always want to stand in front of everyone. Only now do I find out. Let others walk through it safely. It's not that difficult." For 3 months, the winds of the eastern wilderness never cease. The 10,000 Swords Holy Land shut its doors and did not come out. Gu Lingxiao sent 2 letters. The first letter says, "There are already divisions within the Holy Land." Many elders were dissatisfied with Gu Wuya, already seeing the forceful control of the people, but no one dared to oppose it directly. The second letter contained only one sentence. March of the Mountain Opening Day. Gu Wuya would send 10,000 swords as a messenger. Don't just think about winning. Think about what he fears most about you. I read the letter 3 times. Master asked, "Have you figured it out?" I shook my head. "Just a little more." Master handed me a bowl of medicine. "Then drink the medicine first." I smelled that bitterness. He froze. "Master." Suddenly, I thought, Gu Wuya wasn't that scary either. Yi Qingli tried to hold back her laughter from the side. Master said calmly, "I drank it, suffering so much that no one could meet, and all was quiet." A Qi gloated. "Kid, this is what a true demon sword looks like." The energy of March has finally arrived. We set out for the 10,000 Sword Sanctuary. The energy of March has finally arrived. We set out for the 10,000 Sword Sanctuary. The sword energy in the 10,000 Sword Sacred Land was too strong. If you set out early with spiritual power, once there, it's easy for your energy to become unstable. Better to be like a mortal. Better to be like a mortal. Walk slowly. Take your time to watch. I sat outside the carriage driving the carriage. He still held that dead branch in his hand. The withered branches were nourished by the sword intent of the green wood. Not only is it not decayed, instead, a layer of gentle jade cords appeared on her side. To the touch, it looked like a finely polished piece of jade. Yi Qingli sat in the carriage. He was holding a steaming hot osmanthus cake, eating with great relish. Xiaobai's little link, as fat as a ball, flapping its wings, trying to snatch a piece from him. "Xiaobai, if you keep eating, you won't be able to fly." Yi Qingli angrily lifted the pastry high. Xiaobai protested with clear clarity. She rubbed her round head against his wrist. From inside the carriage came the gentle laughter of the master. "Qingli, give him half a piece." He was still growing. Yi Qingli muttered as she broke off half a piece of pastry and handed it over. Xiaobai swallowed it in one gulp. Satisfied, he drew a treasure check. I listened to the sounds behind me. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but lift. Such daily life is ordinary yet precious. Every time I hear their voices, I always silently tell myself in my heart, I drew my sword, all to preserve these voices. Lu Jinhong rode a reverse horse. He silently followed beside the carriage. His golden red sword was wrapped in a thick, solid piece behind her back. During these 3 months, he didn't use a trace of sword energy again. It was as if he had truly become an ordinary mortal bodyguard. Senior brother Lu. Up ahead was the flying cloud formation. Up ahead was the flying cloud formation. Should we stop and rest? All right. I'll go ahead to check the way. And buy some high-quality fresh tea. Disappeared said he liked to drink it. Watching his figure gallop forward, a Qi clicked his tongue in amazement in my sea of poetry. This kid, now she's completely trimmed in all the edges. That golden red sword from before. He wished everyone in the world knew how sharp it was. I smiled slightly. Blunt iron is sometimes harder to break than a fast sword. He found his own sword skill. Feiyun Town is the only way to the 10,000 Swords Holy Land. At this moment, many sword cultivators from various sects had already gathered in the town. We had just settled into an inn. He then heard the surrounding murmurs. Have you heard? This time, the 10,000 Swords Holy Land opened its gates wide. Not only to bring back the Lord of the Wandering Souls from seclusion, he also had to unlock the legendary 10,000 Swords Pavilion. 10,000 Swords Pavilion. Isn't that the forbidden ground of the Holy Land? It is said to contain the purest essence of swordsmanship in the world. Yes, indeed, once Master Gu sends a word, he can enter the pavilion for one stage. As long as he gains the Sword Pavilion's approval, he can rise to the top in one leap. Don't listen to their nonsense. Talk about the origin of swordsmanship. That was clearly the shell of the myriad tribulation sword embryo. The Gu family was impatient, wanting to use the sword intent of all the sword cultivators in the world, forcing the ransom of that item. Kid, swords can be used for protection. But if someone dares to collect all the swords in the world, his own sword. That's called absolute control. That's right. Ji Wuya felt that the world's swords were too chaotic. There will be unexpected changes. What he wanted was a sword in this world that could never harm him again. Nor was there any sword he forbade from drawing Qiao. I wasn't talking. He simply finished the warm tea in his cup. If Ji Wuya's Dao constrained all things, then my formless sword, it means making all things free. 3 days later, we finally arrived at the mountain gate of the 10,000 Sword Sanctuary. It was a massive floating island suspended in midair. 12 sword peaks surround the area, like 12 giant swords piercing the clouds. The waterfall slopes down from the edge of Fukushima. The water flows with sword energy infused with spiritual power. Sunlight shines, refracting countless brilliant rays. Breathtakingly beautiful. What a spectacular sight! What a spectacular sight! This is the foundation of the Eastern Wilderness Sword Dao leader. In front of the mountain gate, a heavenly ladder paved with white jade leads straight to the clouds. On both sides of the heavenly ladder, surrounded by disciples of the sacred land dressed in white, their expressions were cold and distant. His breath lingers long. Each person was like a drawn sword. Elder Ji Chengju stood at the end of the heavenly staircase, looking down at us from above. Qing Xuanzong, you finally came. His voice was like ice colliding. There was not a trace of emotion. I hold a dry branch. Step by step, he stepped forward, faintly. Qing Xuanzong Lin Yuan, and came as promised. Lin Yuan, the sage ruler is benevolent. I'll give you a chance. Wanting to enter the Holy Land, he walked up this heart-questioning staircase himself. This staircase has a total of 999 steps. Each tier was suppressed with an ancient sword intent. If you can reach the top, he would be qualified to meet the Holy Lord. Senior brother Lin's eyesight was poor. I raised my hand to stop Yi Qingling, facing the sky ladder. Under the blurred feeling of the desperate sword boy, I saw the true face of that ladder. This is not the path of questioning the heart. Instead, it was 999 ancient sword intents forcibly locked within Jade Street. The sword on this staircase is crying. The sword on this staircase is crying. What nonsense is he talking about? How could the sword cry? A blind person is blind. I think he's scared, just looking for an excuse. The sword is but a dead object. Only by being driven by others can you be sharp and direct. Lin Yuan, stop pretending to be supernatural. If you don't dare to go up, just admit defeat immediately. I ignored their mockery. He gently tapped the withered branches onto the first jade steps. Achi, let's go. All right, kid, let them see. What does it mean for a true sword to move with the heart? Take the first step. The ancient sword on the jade steps seemed to be unprepared with surprise. Like a fierce tiger, it lunged at me. I don't dodge or dodge. The withered branch in his hand trembled slightly. The greenwood sword swept past like a spring breeze. That is not confrontation. It was about comfort. I understood the frustration and exhaustion of Jianyi High School. I said to him in my heart, thank you for your hard work. Go to sleep. Miraculous. That violent sword intent instantly subsided. He circled around my fingertips, turning into a gentle breeze, dispersing into the world and the world. The pressure on the jade steps, completely vanishing without a trace. I don't believe I can reach the second stage, third stage, fourth stage, third stage, fourth stage. The entire venue fell into dead silence. Everyone stared in shock at this scene. In their eyes, it felt as if I wasn't climbing a ladder filled with pressure. Instead, he took a walk in his own backyard. Those were enough to make ordinary sword cultivators' blood and energy surge. The ancient sword intent that made it impossible to move an inch. In front of me, they were as obedient as a house cat. No earth-shattering collisions. There was no dazzling burst of light. Only a gentle breeze rustles 100 times, and the crisp echo of that withered branch touching the jade steps. He did what he did. A disciple of the Holy Land stammered. There was no fluctuation of spiritual power. No sword was drawn. How exactly did he neutralize the sword might? Ji Chengzhou's expression turned extremely grim. He suddenly waved his sleeve. He secretly activated the formation deep within the heavenly staircase. In an instant, hundreds of sword intents in the latter half of the ladder exploded simultaneously. It transformed into a dazzling tsunami of sword light, sweeping toward me. Since you don't want to be trapped here, those gentle desires transform into curses of execution. Then lend me a hand. Withered branches sweep across, and created his own swordsmanship, and every plant and tree is like a soldier. It's all things can be made into swords. The wind on this heavenly ladder, the wind on this jade loom, the light on this jade street, even those rioting sword intents themselves. At this moment, they all heeded my call. The Wuxiang sword intent transformed into an invisible giant net, not to catch them, but for guidance. That tidal wave of sword light surged like a tidal wave. When it touches my withered branches, miraculously, it split in two, passed through my body, transforming into two dazzling bands of light. Crowded around me, I stepped on the sword light, one step to the summit. Jiyu Chenju was forced to retreat 3 steps by that gentle yet unstoppable force. His face was full of disbelief. You using witchcraft? I gathered the dry branches. The light band then dispersed, transformed into scattered starlight. Throughout the process, not a single flower or tree was harmed. There was not a trace of bloodshed. Elder Jiyu. Swordsmanship is good. Forget about the magic tricks. I came up. Now. You can take me to see Jiyu Wuyang now. Just then, a crisp clapping sound came from ahead. Jiyu Lingxiao wore a moon-white robe, stepping out from the clouds and mist. His gaze was even deeper than 3 months ago. Look at me. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Lin Yuan. You really didn't disappoint me, Elder. Since Lin Yuan had already reached the summit, he is an honored guest of my sacred land. Next. Let me take him to Myriad World Sword Gang. Jiyu Chenju gritted his teeth, but Jiyu Lingxiao was, after all, a sword disciple of the sacred land. His status was noble. He could only snort coldly. He swept his sleeves and left. Master, Yi Qingli and Lu Jinhong. They also walked up through another ordinary passage. Join me. Your words? Don't just think about winning. Myriad World Sword Pavilion. It is a crystal-clear glazed pagoda. It stands at the deepest part of the Holy Land. There was not a single noise around, so quiet that even the sound of falling leaves could be heard clearly. Push open the pagoda's main gate. Inside, it's not a narrow room. Instead, it was a vast starry sky. Every star, both were peerless swords. They quietly float in the void. It radiates a captivating glow. Some are as pure as ice and snow. Some shine like blazing fire. Some are as deep blue as the sea. There is not the slightest sense of oppression or discomfort here. Instead, it was as beautiful as a dream. But under my perception of the sword boy, behind these beautiful stars, but connected by transparent threads, all the threads, ultimately, they all converge in the deepest part of the starry sky. There was a man sitting there, Jiyu Wuya. He wore a fairy garment. Sitting alone, Jiyu Wuya. He wore a white robe untouched by immortal dust. In front of him sat a guqin. The strings of the zither are not strings or bamboo instruments. Instead, it was formed from pure sword intent. He didn't look at us. He just casually plucked the strings of the zither. Gentle as jade, yet carrying a lofty and silent aura. I stepped forward and held a dry branch across my face. Jiyu Wuya, I'm here, to retrieve the truth that belongs to the Lin family. The truth? The truth is, your parents wanted to protect the 2 swords in your eyes. Willingness became a seal. Kid, he didn't lie to you. Back then, the Lin couple was driven to the brink by Jiyu Wuya. To prevent Jiyu Wuya from obtaining the life and death twin swords, they used the Lin family's secret technique to seal the twin swords into your eyes, and they themselves, so, your eyes always carry the scent of your parents. I gripped the dry branch tightly. Only the joints are slightly pale. No angry shouts. Only one deep, helpless sorrow. There is a profound sense of it. Helpless sorrow. They did not die from bloody slaughter. Instead, it has transformed into the warmest light in the world. He protected me for a full 20 years. Why do they do this? Because they are foolish. Because they are foolish. They don't understand. Only by integrating all suggestions into one place can we do so. Only then can the perfect multiverse arrow be created. There are too many pointless conflicts in this world. There are too many uncontrollable variables. As long as I become the lord of the myriad world's arrow fetus, I can make all sword cultivators in the world follow my rules. From then on, there were no more disputes. And the life and death twin swords in your eyes, it was the final key to unlocking the sword embryo. Lin Yuan. Give them to me. I grant you supreme glory. You and I share this peace across all realms. I looked at him. Suddenly, he laughed, and peace prevails throughout the realm. Gu Wuya, what you call peace, it means putting all the birds in a cage. Then tell them, is this the sky? I pointed to the twinkling stars around me. Look at these swords. They appear magnificent. In reality, it is lifeless and lifeless. You use threads to sink deeply. You controlled them with silk threads, drained their spirituality. You are not the master of the sword. You're just a thief. A coward afraid of losing control. Gu Wuya's gaze finally turned cold. The bright pill is ineffective. He waved his hand lightly. In an instant, the starry sky reversed. Between the trees, the peerless sword transforms into a brilliant meteor shower. Leaning toward us, the scene was spectacular to the extreme. There is no bloodline full of murderous intent. Only ultimate splendor and brilliance. Protect senior brother Lin. Yi Qingli drew his long sword. Block in front of me. Lu Jinhong also drew the Jinhong sword without hesitation. The sword light was as sharp as a refined. Protect our flanks. Master then took a step forward. The Ling long sword heart shone brilliantly. It transformed into a massive ice lotus, protecting all of us within it. The meteor shower struck the ice lotus. It emitted a crisp, jade-like sound, stirring up circles of beautiful lotus feathers. Gu Wuya stood behind the meteor shower. His expression was calm. Clothes for the cold dispel the cold. Your Ling long sword heart is indeed pure, but you can't protect it. The swords in the myriad world sword pavilion. He stirred the sword again, feeling a surge of emotion. The sound of emotion becomes tangible ripples. It pierced through the ice lotus's defenses. It directly shakes our minds. Yi Qingli let out a muffled groan, a trace of spiritual power at the corner of his mouth. White mist backlashed by spiritual energy. His footsteps were a bit bright. Lu Jinhong's Jinhong sword let out a mournful cry overwhelmed by the weight. He gritted his teeth. A term of death and death. The master's face turned pale. The light of the exquisite sword heart began to flicker intensely. It seemed as if it could go out at any moment. Master, I was anxious. Leave us alone. The master turned around. He glanced at me. His eyes were filled with trust and determination. Lin Yuan, go do what you need to do. I took a deep breath. Close your eyes. Gu Lingxiao's words echoed in his ears. Think about what he fears most about you. What was Gu Wuya afraid of? He was afraid of losing control. Afraid that the swords bound by him were holding chains. If I use overwhelming force to resist him, that was exactly what he wanted. Because in this Jian pavilion he built, his power is limitless. What I have to do, not defeating him, but to release these swords. Achi, I softly called out in my heart. Kid, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Achi's voice carried a sense of freedom and boldness. I'm just an old bone. Today, I'll go wild with you. Let go of all your perceptions. I pushed the formless sword intent to its limit. Although Powang Sword Boy was not completely unsealed, but at this moment, it radiated a faint yet resolute light. In my perception, the world has become a vast net. Gu Wuya is the center of the net, and those swords are like flying insects online. I lift that warm, dry branch. No more flying insects. I lift that warm, dry branch. He didn't turn to Gu Wuya, nor did it spread toward those flying meteors. I gently said. He dotted the withered branch onto a transparent thread in the void. Right. A crisp sound like glass shattering rang out. That thread broke. A previously controlled Yulan star. Suddenly, it hovered in midair. It looks like a baby just waking up. She wandered around in confusion. Then it let out a soft cry of immense joy. It is free. Gu Wuya's expression changed slightly. What did you do? I didn't answer. The withered branches were pointed out like a swift wind spell. Dang 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 dang. Countless sounds of glass shattering echoed continuously throughout the myriad world sword pavilion. Like a joyful symphony. My movements were extremely fast. His figure darted through the meteor shower. Every swing of a withered branch, a control thread was cut off in every way. I pushed the vibe of every plant on guard to the extreme. I borrow the insights of those swords that are already free to cut more threads. Bastard. Gu Wuya finally lost his former high office. He suddenly stood up. Both hands played the zither in succession, trying to regain control of those swords. However, the will to awaken cannot be forcibly suppressed. Those swords that regain freedom. He did not attack Gu Wuya. Instead, they surround me, like a group of cheering children. Gu Wuya. You, me. You, me. It broke. A hint of madness flashed in Gu Wuya's eyes. Even if the network is broken, as long as I get your eyes, I can still reforge the sword platform. He abandoned the bone riders. His entire body transformed into a massive sword of light that could pierce heaven and earth. It struck straight at me. This sword, it gathered all his lifelong cultivation. Not a single bit of spending is lacking. Only pure destruction. The overwhelming pressure made it hard for me to breathe. The sealing sword in his eyes began to tremble violently. Kid. Peanut sword. Using my protective sword soul as a bridge to intercept your parents' strength. Then, I felt the warm sword soul that had always accompanied me in the sea of stones. Suddenly, it started burning. That was a chi burning his last bit of existence. Senior, my eyes grew hot. Don't cry and sob. Old man, today, I did something earth-shattering. Lin family kid, the road ahead. Take care of yourself. But his burning paved the way for me to draw my sword. I raised my hand, pressed against his own eyes. A sword is born. Draw the sheath. This time, no blood, no pain. Only a dazzling mass remained. An incredibly warm glow, bursting from my eyes. Within that light, I seemed to see my father's broad back. He saw his mother's gentle smile. They didn't leave a single word behind. It has simply become the toughest shield in the world, blocking my way. A sword is born. Not a sword meant for killing. It was a sword meant to protect. It transformed into a dazzling galaxy. He met Ji Wuya's destructive lightsaber. Two overwhelming forces collided in midair. No earth-shattering explosions. No deafening roars. Only the fusion of light and light. Only the overwhelming pressure of sword intent and sword intent. Under the washing of the starry river, Ji Wuya's lightsaber started to dissolve bit by bit. His proud way of control, in the face of absolute protection and freedom. It looked so fragile and unbearable. No, that's impossible. Ji Wuya let out a frustrated roar. Just then, suddenly, the master withdrew the ice lotus. He ascended into the air. The exquisite sword heart transformed into a strand of pure and exhausting sword energy. He directly threw it into my sword heart box. Ling Yuan, lend me your sword. The master's cold voice echoed through the grand hall. The exquisite sword heart is one of the purest sources of swordsmanship in the world. Its addition, the power of the raw sword instantly reached its peak. The heart box is rewinding. In an instant, it swallowed Ji Wei. After the light faded, the interval between the myriad world sword realm returned to calm. Ji Wei collapsed to the ground. His fresh, untainted white clothes now looked somewhat disheveled. He suffered no physical injuries. Not a drop of blood was left behind. Not even a single hair was missing. But his whole being, it felt as if he had suddenly aged 10 years. My sword embryo. I sheathed my sword. The seal on his eyes was completely lifted. For 20 years, for the first time, I truly saw the world clearly. Seeing clearly, that master looked somewhat pale, but with a face full of satisfaction. He saw clearly the tears at the corners of Yu Qingli's eyes. He saw Lu Jinhong's relieved smile. He also saw clearly Ji Wuya, who had collapsed to the ground. His cultivation, dispersed, because of his strength. It is built on control over the 10,000 swords. When all the threads of control are cut off, when his faith was completely shattered, his foundation in swordsmanship also collapsed as a result. He was no longer the lofty lord of 10,000 swords, but a mortal who has lost all his power. For a sword cultivator, this made him more desperate than killing him. But he did not die. He will carry this despair with him, living as a mortal. I didn't bother with him anymore. Instead, he turned to look at the stars dancing in midair. They emit waves of clarity. It was as if she was saying goodbye to me. Then, they transformed into streams of light, rushed out of the myriad world sword pavilion. It flew in all directions to the east. It flew in all directions to the east. They will seek out those who truly understand their purpose, to start their own legend. From then on, the myriad world sword pavilion became an empty tower. Leave it to me. The Holy Land also needs a fresh start. Jiu Lingxiao. What will the 10,000 sword sanctuary look like in the future? It will become a true place for sword competitions. No sword slaves. There was no control. Only the purest swordsmanship sparring. I'm looking forward to it, I said sincerely. 3 months later, Qingxuanzong, Hanifeng. Snow in the east emerges from the frontier. Manshan is covered with unknown pale blue flowers. The sunshine is great. It shines warmly on people. I sat on a stone bench in the courtyard. He was carefully wiping the branch with a soft cloth. It is now completely slippery, crystal clear. Absolutely beautiful. Although my eyes have fully recovered, but I still kept the habit of closing my eyes and listening every day, because there are some things, you can't see it with your eyes. Senior brother Lin. Come on, come on. Yi Qingli rushed into the courtyard like a gust of wind, holding a red letter in her hand. Xiao Bai flapped its wings behind him. He is heavier than he was 3 months ago. When flying, it looks like a Tang Yuan floating in midair. What's wrong, Tang Yuan? What's wrong? He said the reorganization of the 10,000 Sword Sanctuary was complete. He invited us to attend the new sword debate conference. He also said, this time, there were absolutely no messy rules. The winner can take away the 9 rules of the sacred land. The best jar of 1,000-day drunkenness. Ji Yu Lingxiao was becoming more and more down to earth. What about Master? Xiao Fengzhu is guiding Senior Brother Liu in swordsmanship at the back mountain. Senior Brother Liu is really impressive now. He recondensed his sword heart. Although not as sharp and outspoken as before, but it feels even heavier. Xiao Fengzhu said, he might be able to find a path in the future. And my own bracelet sword. I nodded. His heart was filled with relief. Everyone has found their own home. How wonderful. Just as he was speaking, Master and Lu Jinhong walked back from the back mountain. The master wore a pale blue long dress, shedding the cold shell it once had. It appears gentle and soft. His exquisite sword heart is nourished by my life sword. Not only is it fully restored, even further, he reached a state of perfection. That strand of white hair had also turned black again. What are they talking about? They were talking about going to the 10,000 Sword Sanctuary to win their wine. How's your sword training going? If you lose, don't even mention being a disciple of my Hanifeng. I stood up, with a twist of his wrist. The withered branches slid in a graceful arc through the air. Sword energy without spiritual power. There was no earth-shattering momentum. Only the old locust tree in the yard remained. It was as if he sensed something, gently swaying. A few emerald green leaves have fallen. It landed on my shoulder. There is no visible appearance. Adapting to all things, I looked at my master, looking at Yi Qingli, looking at Lu Jinhong, looking at the vibrant Hanifeng. Before me was a clear daylight. The fresh scent of plants and trees is rich and rich in the air. And me, the wind passes through the cold garment. The grass and trees gently bow low. The sky is high and the clouds are light. The sword's intent endures, but no one knew. Deep in my right eye, that extinction sword still had a wisp of black sword light that hadn't faded away. The sword was already drawn, protecting the person I want to protect. But what the annihilation sword truly wanted to cut down, perhaps even farther beyond the myriad worlds. The story of this world still has a long way to go, but at least for now, that is the best fulfillment.